All rise. The Monday, June 10th, 2013, South Bend Common Council is now in session. An invocation by Reverend Sylvester Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let us bow our heads in respect for this place as well as going before the throne of grace. Father, we come today to invoke your presence in this place. We ask you that you would slow us down from the tedious tasks of the day. We might be not filled with the anxieties and the fears. And Father, we come in this place to do the people's business. So we open ourselves that you might pour within us wisdom and understanding, your knowledge and your favor. And Father, we pray that as we go forth in this council meeting, that we are able to disagree without becoming disagreeable, that we're able to debate without being combative. And Lord, we just ask your presence to be here today, and we thank you for allowing us to invoke you into our presence today. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's 40. We read the roll. Does anyone have the resolution? I don't have any resolution. It's inside your roll call, Mr. Mr. Henry Davis.
Ready to serve, Mr. Board.
Mrs. Shea.
Ready to serve as well.
Dr. Phillips. Dr. Varner.
Present.
Vice President Davis.
I'm present.
Councilmember White.
Present.
Mr. Furley. President Peters.
Present, Mr. Morty.
9 present.
Thank you. May I have a report from the Subcommittee on Ministers?
To the Common Council of the City of South Bend, the subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the May 29th, 2013 meeting of the council and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved. Signed, Derek Dieter, David Varner.
So moved.
Second.
I think we had a motion and we're seconding it. All in favor of that? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you.
Special business, Clerk Morty, will you go to 1337, please?
A resolution of the South Bend Common Council establishing the 8th annual Dump the Pump Day on Thursday, June 20th, 2013 in South Bend, Indiana.
Vice President Oliver Davis. Thank you, President Dieter. My name is Oliver Davis. I reside at 1801 Nash Street here in South Bend, Indiana, and I proudly represent the South Bend Common Council on the Transport Board. And I bring this resolution to you, just reads as follows. A resolution of the South Bend Common Council establishing the 8th annual National Dump the Pump Day on Thursday, June 20th, 2013 in South Bend, Indiana. Whereas June 20th, 2013 marks the 8th annual National Dump the Pump Day, a day that encourages people to ride public transportation to save money, protect the environment, reduce our dependence on foreign oil, and improve the quality of life for all Americans. And whereas people who ride public transportation can save on average more than $9,700 per year based on today's gas prices, the cost of owning a car, and the average unreserved parking rate. And whereas for every $1 invested in public transportation, $4 is generated in economic returns. And whereas U.S. public transportation usage reduces the country's carbon footprint by 37 million metric tons, which is equivalent to New York City, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Denver, and Los Angeles combined electrical usage. And whereas the U.S. public transportation saves 4.2 billion gallons of fuel annually, and whereas public transportation used in 490 urban areas in the United States saves 865 million hours annually in travel time and 450 million gallons of fuel. Now, without public transportation, annual congestion costs would have risen by nearly $21 billion from 121 to 142 billion. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, as follows. Section 1. The South Bend Common Council hereby declares Thursday, June 20th, 2013 as National Dump the Pump Day in South Bend, and we join with public transportation agencies across the country in participating in the 8th Annual National Dump Day to encourage transit ridership. Section 2. The South Bend County Council notes that by using public transportation, people save money, help the environment, reduce dependence on foreign oil, and improve Americans' quality of life. Section 3. The resolution shall be in full force in effect well and after its adoption by the Common Council and approval by the Mayor. At this time, I'd like to have a comment from our Transport General Manager, David Kevin.
Thank you, Council. Council, I'd just like to, my name is David Kenny, and I reside at 1401 South Lafayette Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana. I'd like to take this opportunity just to talk about the benefits of using public transportation. Most importantly, it's the greenest way to go, but then also it helps folks save money. So this year's theme is Right Transit, Save Money. So we're inviting all the council members to come out and ride transit on June the 20th, as well as participate in our event, and invitations will be sent out. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. Would anyone like to speak in favor of 1337? Anyone in opposition? Council members, move for the adoption of 1337.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make an announcement under special business that Mike Schmuel will be representing the city administration for the last time. We got a couple minutes here if everybody would like to start with Karen White.
I would say we're not clapping because you're leaving. But we do wish you the very best. I have enjoyed working with you, and I'm waiting for an invitation to go out of the country and visit you. And so don't forget the city of South Bend.
So moved.
Okay?
Devin?
No, Mike, it's been great working with you over the past year and a half here. Look forward to hopefully seeing you in Paris sometime over the next couple of years, and then looking forward to having you back here in about 2 years.
Oliver?
It's been great working with you. I personally want to thank you for coming out to all of the meetings, dealing with the ethanol crisis that we've had. You stepped through meeting after meeting, and it seems like we are moving forward to a quality solution to that whole problem. So you spearheaded a lot of that along with the rest of the team. So I want to thank you for that. So best wishes, and looking forward to visiting with you also. Thank you.
Good.
Mike, good luck and enjoy the hiatus. It's I know the hours, I suspect the hours you work are long. You probably put in a couple hours worth of time in the last 2 years, so you got a couple coming. Enjoy them.
Mike, I appreciate the way you approach problems with equanimity, and you always had measured responses, and I'm going to try to get the same hairdo you have, okay?
Mike, it's been a pleasure. I know the job of chief of staff has not been an easy one, and I really appreciate you've done a wonderful job, and you've always been a pleasure to work with. So thank you. And bon chance, I think is the way to say.
Mike, I echo the same sentiments as my colleagues. However, you still didn't on that email list for the basketball finals, so I guess you really don't want your farewell gift to have before this. Okay, all right. Well, definitely, but good luck over there in Paris, and if you need somebody to stow away in your bag on the way out there.
Mike, it's just an extreme pleasure to work with you. You should take that poker, that grin you have on your face. Sometimes you don't really know which way you're leaning with that grin, but just enjoyed working with you tonight. So good luck and safe.
Mike, I'll put you by the tower.
I believe I read in the paper where you said after you graduated from Notre Dame, you couldn't imagine coming back to South Bend, and yet you did, and I hope it was as pleasurable an experience for you as it has been for us, and I hope it's not the last we'll see of you.
And Mr. Schmuel, I would like to thank you for everything you did. A lot of people don't know all the hard work you put in, and I've told you before, I think you've been the heart and soul of the city since you've been here, and have done a great job of holding that big responsibility way past of what your job title is. So, again, good luck to you. I'm happy for you. Make sure you have brakes on your bicycle, because I know you jumped it a couple times. But other than that, we appreciate all the good work that you've done. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. At this point, we will go to report to city offices. Councilmember Henry Davis, under his committee, had scheduled Phil St. Clair, and we ran out of time. And Superintendent St. Clair is giving us his time to come and give an update on the equipment in the parks. We'll do about a 10-minute presentation and then 5-minute questions from our council.
Thank you, President Peter. And I'd also like to comment that it's been a pleasure working with Mike as well for the past year and a half. Mike's you got a general love for the city, and I know he's worked very hard for Mayor Pete, and from the department head standpoint, we're going to miss Mike as well. As far as my report tonight, it wouldn't be my typical report to the city offices, because I probably would bring more information in, and we'd spend a little bit more time on some facts, data. But the question was capital, park capital, the state of the park capital right now. And I'll tell you this, that South Bend has, second only to Indianapolis, and similar to Fort Wayne, park department of 57, 58 parks, and an operating budget of nearly $13 million. And I feel very proud of the facilities that we have and the staff we have working those facilities. South Bend, from a budget standpoint, is second only to Indianapolis in terms of parks and recreation. And the reason for that is because we've got a very diverse operation in parks. We don't just do the zoo, we just don't do golf, we don't just do recreation programming. We do a lot of other things. We snowplow, we do leaf cleanup, we do graffiti abatement, we have park police. We do a lot of different things rather than just a program out in the parks. And doing a lot of those different things requires a lot of capital with regards to equipment, facilities, and some of our park upgrades. One thing that I've pointed out to most of you in the past couple of years, and probably all of you at one point in time in my tenure, has been the lack of a park bond for park improvements. And we have not had a park bond since 1972 that has been for park development, strictly park development. When you look at our counterpart in Fort Wayne and Evansville, where they do $10 million recurring bonds, in addition to that, they do other project bonds for their parks department. They've been able to keep up with a lot of the trends in their facilities. And I'm not saying that we're not, but I'm saying for us, the past has been a little different. We have developed a few parks over the last 15, 20 years that have been very successful and well used in the community. And we're grateful for that, but it hasn't come, financing for those projects hasn't come easily, and it doesn't come consistently. We look today, and we look at our park facilities, and we have 6 park bonds that were passed between 1958 and 1972 for park development. Those bonds included the Olive Park Ice Rink, Canton and Potawatomi Pools, Belleville, Dame, and Bowling Parks, just to name a few. A lot was done, and I think the vision back in those days for this community, for the city, was to have a family-oriented type of city, an environment for families to grow and prosper in. And public parks is always, and will continue to be always, a big part of that quality of life issue that provides a good family atmosphere for families in South Bend. So, saying all that, we're 4 years down the road, and still with a large park system. My last count was for the 35 buildings for the park facilities and 58 parks, and it's a big operation, and that does include Bill Westby Stadium and the zoo, which has a number of facilities of itself, and the zoo, the East Race Waterway, city cemeteries, a lot of different facilities. And so we've got a lot to take a look at as we look to the future for parks and capital. Now, how do we move forward with that? Typically what we do is every 5 years we do a master plan that has to be submitted to the Department of Natural Resources. There's a variety of requirements of us that we have to meet in our master plan, self-assessment, priorities, action plans, inventories, a lot of different things. And I believe you may have all received the action plan, the master plan when we put it together back in 2009. At least those of you on the council, and we will continue to do that at our next master plan. So the master plan is a series of public meetings, one in each district. We always invite the council members to come. It's an opportunity for citizens to discuss their priorities and concerns and needs and desires for parks, and we take that all into consideration. And we also do a lot of staff assessment and internal discussion as well. And we try to come up with a 5-year plan that meets all the standards that are required of us. And then we move forward with that in our action plan. Now, some of those action plans we have require capital funding. And if the capital funding is not there, then the action plan doesn't move forward. And that's been the situation throughout the last 10 or so years with the master plan. And we recognize we're not going to get everything that we want or need, but I think it's time to perhaps start having that discussion about where we all envision Parks and Recreation being 5 years from now, and what type of facilities we want to start taking a look at. So I hope I did that in a lot of time, and we'll back in.
Start with Council Member Scott and down the dais. Phil, I want to appreciate the conversation. Thank you for the conversations that you and I have had about park systems. It is something near and dear to my heart with Pinhook, the River Walk, and several other facilities. I think the one thing that is going to be on my mind going forward is there are certain areas of the first district that against the second district that in the urban areas where we have issues with vacant abandoned homes that there isn't a park within walking distance for some kids and some adults to take advantage of. And I think that's something that I'd like to see on the radar. Also, I'd like to discuss with you sometime. About a year ago, we mentioned trying to not cut grass as much and maybe plant wildflowers and native grasses, in that there's some parts of our parks that, like Pinhook, that there are people not using some of the grass areas along the road, and that I think we can save money and work towards. So, not really any questions, but I think that's some concerns that I'd like to work with you in the future and with the Parks Committee and Chair Henry Davis.
Councilor Davis. Thank you, Mr. St. Clair, for showing up today and giving them a report. I'll be the first, like we said, that I'll be looking forward to probably sponsoring some resolution in support of voting park bond. I don't know at what level. Hopefully we have more discussion on it, but we've actually talked about it at the beginning of our committee assignments earlier this year about, some of the things that the outlook was, and one of the outlooks was about voting park bond because of some of the issues we were dealing with as it relates to funding for the park system. There also has been a number of discussions about second district is home to a lot of parks. And then we also have 2 recreational centers as well that could use some more financial assistance. So as we continue on with our conversation about it, I'm in full support of looking into what type of park bond do we go, how much we can afford, but also involving the community in a comprehensive but also progressive conversation about what to expect, what they would like to see, and what we actually make happen as well, because I think the community deserves it, and they've been deserving it for a long time. 2 questions. One question is, Kennedy's pool going to open up this year?
Kennedy's pool open up?
Yeah, it's going to be open this year.
Yes.
Okay, and when does grass cutting start?
Grass cutting has already started.
Yes. Okay.
Is there a particular park? Let me know.
Yeah, is it on a rotational deal?
Yes.
Or it is? Okay.
Just let me know. I'll have somebody to take a look at it.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Shea?
Still, you do a great job, and the parks are wonderful. I do have a question because I know that the parks maintains lawns around the city. Do you know the islands on Mishawaka Avenue? Do the parks maintain the islands?
Yes. Most of them, there are some agreements we have with various neighborhood associations and not-for-profits that maintain some, but we maintain the majority of them.
Okay, I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Oh, Phil, is there a citizens corps where you have private citizens donate their time to help with parks and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if I call it citizen corps, but we have a volunteer program. And volunteer program, we've logged in almost 8,000 hours year-to-date, volunteer hours for parks right now. And some of that is park cleanup, some of that's programming, some of it's mentoring. But yeah, I think we've got a pretty good outreach throughout the community. Something we couldn't use more, but I think we'll probably have, I'm guessing probably 20,000 plus hours in volunteer time for parks by the end of the year.
So how many of the 57 parks are covered by volunteer help?
Well, I don't think any of them are covered by volunteer help. I think you get assisted. It just varies. Sometimes if it's a neighborhood association, they'll focus on that neighborhood park. If it's an organization that has particular interest in some component of our park, they'll do that. If it's a church and it's in a neighborhood, they'll assist with the park. But I can't say that anybody is taking ownership of the park and actually doing all the maintenance.
No, not. Okay, thank you, because I think that's going to be the future of private-public approach to it.
Director Harder. Well, for as long as I've been on the council, Phil's been looking for bond issue, so I know it's near to his heart. I think at some point in time that there's if an appropriate funding mechanism is identified, which I don't have to tell you is always part of any of that sort of thing, and the project's met with public support, I think it's something we probably should consider. But I think we have to consider the overall, not just because Fort Wayne did it, not just because Indianapolis has done it, and to the extent we can utilize public-private partnerships and public support and public sponsorships, I think we need to explore that and pursue it, because I know that Indianapolis and Fort Wayne have done that to a great extent. And in the back of my mind, I wonder why it hasn't happened in South Bend. That's a question. I don't understand why not. So I think if we can look at that in the future, that's certainly worth addressing also.
Councilmember Davis. And piggybacking up to Dr. Vargas with that public partnership issues, and I sent an email out earlier last week regarding the cemeteries, especially the city cemetery, as we look at commemorating and still celebrating Vice President Skylar Colfax, all of his work, and all those who are buried out there in the cemetery. When we went out there to celebrate back in his birthday in March, it was kind of interesting, to say the least, when you look at all that. And so therefore, the list I sent you in terms of preparing that wish list or whatever that needs to be done in terms of restoring the city cemetery so we can start kicking that off on the 24th. We'd like to really push that and look at monies. And there are different groups that have been calling me ever since that was published in the media all over the country who wanted to be participating in fixing up the cemetery, especially those who are associated with Vice President Colfax societies. Also, the Walker Field, the shelter Walker Field. Several people have asked me about restoring that shelter. It's been out there and there's a lot of historical value with the shelter, so people to look at that also. And again, I continually thank you about the graffiti issue. Since I've been on the council, that's been dear to my heart because of all the challenges, and I appreciate what you have done in that area and continue to work as I see something springing up again this time of year. And so we're just continue to go along with that. All right. Thank you, Gavin.
Just thank you for the great work you do. The golf courses especially this year look great, and congratulations on 1 and 18 on Elbow. It's spectacular. Looks awesome.
Councilmember White. Okay, Bill, would like to thank you for your work and look forward to the budget process as we begin to identify priorities. And again, we know that's going to take additional dollars, but I would like to look at some of the centers and some of the parks in which we may have to add additional support to bring them up to par. You look at the city, our size, we have 58 parks. That's a lot, and I think that we need to prioritize how best to utilize the limited resources that we do have, and to begin to look at how our parks must play in the quality of life for the city of South Bend. So I look forward to the budget process.
All right, thank you, Phil. Since I've been to the council, I've supported any park fund that you bring. My Councilmember Henry Davis Jr. for beginning this discussion on that. I don't think the general public is really aware, unless you get out amongst the city, of seeing Potawatomi, Pinhook, Leeper, East and West, Walkerfield, Big Park, Gordy Park, Rum Village, South Park, Kennedy, Measle, Keller, Brownsfield, even Memorial, and Belleville, and even the obscure Honeymoon Park, Clay Park, and Chetery Park. People really don't have a clue. That's how it started. Of the immense acreage we have and how phenomenal these places are, especially like Councilmember Scott to bring Pinhook back in the 60s when that was the hub of outdoor activities, lagoon swimming, diving boards, you name it, we had it. I think the acreage that South Bend encompasses with these parks, I don't know any other city in Indiana that has that much acreage in the different localities and all inside every part of the city. So again, any park bond you bring, I'm voting for. So get it together and get with Councilmember Davis and let's go. And it's interesting to go with the public-private partnership because that's what we're going to be talking about pretty soon. So got that. So thank you very much. At this time, Ms. White may have a motion to resolve in the committee of the whole.
So moved.
All in favor of that? Aye. Any opposition?
I'm going to remain in this seat as we only will have one bill that's before us. Would like to share with the audience that the committee of the whole, this is the time in which the council will hear second reading public hearing on ordinance that will be coming before the council as well as before you as our citizens. We'll have a committee report where the presenters will have opportunity to present the bill that is before us. We'll hear from those that are in favor and those that are in opposition. And after that time, if there are any questions, the council members will have the opportunity to ask the presenter questions pertaining to the project that is before us. And then we go to the public hearing portion, and then we'll move directly back to the council discussions prior to taking action. At this time, I'm going to ask if someone would be willing to time the presentation so that we know exactly the time in which the overall presentation would be, and that individuals coming before the council that would like to speak in favor, if I'm not mistaken, you will have 3 minutes. Is that correct? 5 minutes, and then we will go to those who would speak in opposition.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Shays will volunteer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Shays. That's
I
fine.
just have a watch.
That's fine.
Appreciate it so much. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 11-13.
To make a motion to continue 1113 to 7/8/13 at request of the petitioner. And second.
It's been moved and seconded that we'll continue Bill 11-13 as requested by petitioner. All those in favor of the motion, I hear your vote. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Mr. Gordy, will you please give second reading to Bill 09-13?
Public hearing on a bill of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 13 of the South Bend Municipal Code by the inclusion of new Article 12 entitled Chronic Problem Property Regulations.
I will now entertain a motion to accept the substitute version of Bill 09-13.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, may I hear your vote? Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. We'd like to say that the Health and Public Safety Committee had a public hearing on substitute Bill 09-13, and we send this bill to the full council with a favorable recommendation. At this time, we'll ask that the presenter will state his name and address and to give us a summary of the substitute Bill 09-13.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Tim Scott, 711 Forest Avenue, South Bend, 46616. I would first like to thank co-sponsors Derek Dieter and Karen White for joining me on this bill, working diligently with the administration, Mayor Pete, as well as Ron Teachman, Crystal Briscoe, and Mikael Nash, as well as Shiva Kamali, Mike Schmuel as well. I did this presentation earlier for committee, so I'm going to go fairly quickly through this again, just to reiterate some of the key points. So the reason for chronic nuisance and substitute bill is to deal with excessive calls for services and place an undue burden on public safety and city services. What we want to do is look at the overall safety of the city and deal with issues of repeat chronic nuisance properties, which take away from the safety for all citizens. Just put in perspective, Seattle has a population of 608,000. In 2011, part of their chronic nuisance ordinance, they had only 750 calls for service. As I stated in the past, South Bend has a population roughly of 100,000, and we have one apartment complex, Courtyard Place, which I've used for example, had 550 calls for service. So what I want to do, based on the committee meeting that we had earlier, last couple of weeks, is go through some of the numbers that kind of put it in better perspective of why this is an issue within South Bend and why there's a need for chronic nuisance. So we took a sample of 60 days, which from April to June that would fall under the chronic nuisance bill, and looked at the criteria that calls for service based on the chronic nuisance criteria. And within those calls of service in 60 days, there are 3,849 calls. And there were 774 properties that were involved with that. And the point here is it's not just the large complexes that are at issue within South Bend, it's also the single properties. So, go back. No. So if you look at the cost of taxpayers for that 60-day sample, it was almost $1 million. And I use the word caution here because if you amortize that over 12 months, just that sampling, we're talking about $11,500,000 of taxpayer dollars just dealing with repeat calls to properties of the 774 properties. And then if you look at, we have 48,000 parcels or properties addresses within the city of South Bend. Of that, only 2% of those properties are dealing with chronic nuisance, but it is consuming 39% of police budget. Go ahead. So, if we look at the criteria of properties of 50 units or less, which would fall under the 5 calls within 60 days, there were 266 of those properties. In our sampling, the number of calls for service was 2,222. And the number of properties that were 51 units or above had 12 calls or more, which would be part of the chronic nuisance bill, which is 51 properties or more, would get 12 calls for service in 90 days. There would only be 8 properties. So the number of calls for service for those 8 properties were 163, which roughly $40,000 taxpayer cost. So let's look at large apartment complexes versus single properties. So there was 46 large apartment complexes within our sampling, 372 calls, and $93,000. So out of those 46, only 8 would fall under the criteria for nuisance properties. But if you look at the single family or single unit dwellings within our city, there were 771 calls or properties that would fall under chronic nuisance, resulting in 3,477 calls and over $800,000. And I put up another example, which I've mentioned Courtyard many a times, but 622 Portage Avenue, which is close to where I live and has a court injunction on it because of chronic nuisance issues before we really had this bill. And you can look, they've had 13 calls for service within the 60-day period. So single addresses are an issue. It is within our city, and we need to look at it and address it, and chronic nuisance doesn't. So, again, here's some large apartment complexes. Why do they come up? Miami Hills, Courtyard Place, there's a high concentration of issues and repeat issues where our police department, our code department, all that are out there. And if you look at them, they well exceed the chronic nuisance status, 12 or more. You can see some that are on that verge. They would get warning letters at 3 letters knowing that they're moving towards that. So, just an example. Just quickly, I won't go through all the sampling on chronic nuisance with Courtyard Place, but here is the 6-year average for calls for service to Courtyard Place. 1.4 calls every day for 6 years. A police officer has been to Courtyard Place every day for 6 years. So I have to commend Joe Graybill, who is the receiver right now. He is doing a fine job bringing those numbers down. As you know, they were on track for 1,000 calls for service this year until we got involved. That's one thing with the chronic nuisance and one thing with large apartment complexes. We do have a remediation program in there to take a look at some of these big units, to work with the city administration to come up with a corrective action game plan to kind of solve some of these. So, go ahead, you can go. This is just calls for service. So anyway, let's look at definitions. Chronic nuisance. The nuisance activities includes criminal offense governed by Indiana state law, city violations or disrupt the general health, safety, and welfare that's documented. Okay. With that, a warning letter will go out to apartment complexes or single units or properties after 3 calls within the time period to let them know. So it's not going to just come up and say you're on chronic nuisance and you have to deal with it. But if you are deemed within chronic nuisance, go ahead. Again, 5 calls of code letters or calls for service within 60 days for dwellings of 50 or less. 12 calls or code letters within 90 days for 51 dwellings or more. If you're deemed chronic nuisance, you can be subject to $250 for each time either code or the police are out there after for 1 year. So the summary, why the $250? It is a fine. It's related to the cost for services. We got to understand the cost for a police officer code, the equipment they use, the car, the gas, all the support services that they have behind the scenes, dispatch, radio, administration, also with legal, having to deal with the documentation of it, the officers that will be documenting, and there's a cost associated to it. So that's why the $250. Oh, stay there. Also, what we propose to do is actually put up on the website once or every 6 months a list of where the code violations were, the money collected, and who has been deemed chronic nuisance, so it's on there. There's also 2 other things. There's an appeal process through the code hearing officer, just like code violations are now. So someone who wanted to appeal their process, they can go before them and hear it legally, fairly, and also the remediation program that I talked about earlier. So, go ahead. One thing that we do want to note, and is a concern of myself and all of the co-sponsors, is we want to press the fact that if there's any intimidation, there's any threats to make towards any tenants, any property, anybody living on the property, to try to keep them from not calling the police or code or anything like that, that they can be prosecuted under the county prosecutor and with city legal. If this is passed, if you guys vote on it and approve it, we plan on implementation on October 15th. What we want to do is be able to give city time to get their act together and be prepared to implement. And also what we'd like to do is be able to do PSAs, educational training to apartment complexes, any landlords, property owners, any tenants, and understand what chronic nuisance means. And with that, just one of Chief Commissioner would like to make a comment as part of the presentation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Chief Ron Keachman, South Bend Police Department. Before I submit a letter of support formally for the record, I just want to say that we are appreciative of the efforts of this council, particularly its co-sponsors bringing this ordinance forward. We recognize that there are few properties in the city having disparate impact on our department and our ability to respond, protect, and serve the entire South Bend community. This ordinance brings about accountability. Even as it's in its draft stages, we've seen a difference in the response of some property owners to come to the table and discuss their properties. We've already had a few success stories even before ratification. We're also very appreciative that the sponsors have come to us and inclusive dialogue to our civilian and sworn staff who are responsible for administering this program as well. And we appreciate the slight delay in the implementation, the delay of October 15th, as we will be assigning people, both sworn and civilian, to this task, and speaking to our colleagues in law enforcement around the country that have similar ordinances so we can adopt their experiences and best practices. With that, I'll submit my letter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, up on my table, you were all given a copy of the letter from the mayor in your support as well. I'd like to submit that into the record as well. And just in final summary, you can pull a fire alarm and it's a false alarm. You can get fined or even prosecuted. If you have false alarms at your residence with ADT or someone else, there's a fine associated to it. But you can call the police department as many times as you want, and nothing really happens. We have very good landlords within the city of South Bend, and we have some that are not so good. And some of the ones that are not so good are taking away from our resources and also our taxpayer dollars. So, with that said, hope it has consequences.
At this time, I'm going to open it up for our council members to ask questions of the petitioner that pertains to the ordinance that's before us. I will start with first council member Henry Davis and go directly down the line.
Thank you, Chairman White. I would like to know, for starters, what's wrong with the current provisions and enforcement tools that are already out there?
I don't think there's anything wrong with those.
So why are we looking at to add more to change?
I think there's a need for us to respond and get the attention of property owners that feel the need to use our resources as management purpose. That you can own a property, you can live in Houston, you can live in Connecticut, and wherever. You can collect rent money, you can make a profit off those properties, but you can let the police come and deal with the actual domestic issues that are happening at those properties. So this layer is, probably there's something missing that actually helps the code department, the police department look at this at a little higher level on these repeat and work on corrective actions. Now, the one thing that we typically notice is most people respond to their pocketbook. And you adjust to them, you give them corrective solutions that affect their pocketbook, they're going to respond.
So why not change the licensing or create some type of licensing package, I should say, or ordinance for rental properties with certain caveats? Meaning if you have over a certain amount of units, you have to have X amount of security guards on a 24-hour time clock, or just a licensing fee that's, pretty high, and it comes down each year based on the amount of cost of service to the property.
Don't know. This is the route I chose to go. This is a route a lot of other cities within the country have gone.
Okay. I keep hearing about that cost issue, and I think I've asked this earlier. If the officer is not there, what else is the officer doing? We're associating because there at that particular site handling that call, they could potentially be doing something else because there's a cost doing business. And I've noticed while we continue to grapple at this idea, but there's a heavy, I think it's a misconception on how we evaluate cost of doing business. If you're being paid to go answer calls, that's your job, so that's what you're supposed to do. Although it may become, a pesky situation, and it may be, mundane, or maybe something that you may just be plain sick of doing. That's still your job, and you still have to do it. And if you don't feel like doing your job, then, obviously you probably would change your job. So I'm asking that question again, what are they supposed to be doing if they're not answering to those calls? Because I could give you two situations, one that was, ended up in a really bad light. When you had a number called services to a residence on West Washington Street, was a situation with a Camillus Sturgis that ended in a really, really bad situation. And then we had passed a resolution several months ago when we looked at the calls of service to domestic violence situations with women, with the Family Investment Unit, the prosecutor's office, as well as the YWCA. So how are we going to differentiate with all those things being on the table?
I think in a perfect world, if a police officer or code person responds to a complaint, an issue, in a perfect world, we hope that it's resolved that one time and that one time only. And they have the opportunity to move on somewhere else. Not to keep going back to the same property 3 times a day. I think this is a way to have more effective service, such the term, and allows us to reallocate resources to maybe crime prevention, to be proactive. If we take care of the solution that is there up front. And by having 5 calls or 12 calls, it raises the level to someone else within the department to say, we do have an issue here that we need to look at. There are some ordinances around this country that have 3 calls and 3 calls only. And I know there's some council members that wish our bill was that way. But I think what we need to do is be able to allocate our services so everybody's safe within the city and not keeping response or keep going back to the same properties over and over.
My last question, are you worried that someone will begin to take the law into their own hands, given the fact that, there's an understanding that you may be charged for this call? Because it's not the property owner. The property owner is going to tell the renter, and then the renter is going to evaluate that in their own light, in their own fashion. So chances are they may not want to call because of, this heavy-handed approach to handling nuisance or chronic nuisance calls.
I don't think I quite understand, Councilman. You mean the landlord will say something to the tenant?
Well, there's a ripple effect. Okay, so now the landlord is going to be a little bit more aggressive in letting the renter know that you can't call, because if you call, you may be, getting eviction notice. So chances are that they don't want to call if there's a strange situation. So since I don't want to call and should call, but I may be, evicted from this residence that I'm renting, then do I take the law into my own hands, or do I take my chances at calling?
Well, thus our provision stated within the bill that there is an intimidation factor or threat factor that can be taken care of, that they can call and actually report that as well. I just want to make sure it's absolutely clear that if someone calls about complaint, it's not the person calling about the complaint that's going to get deemed chronic nuisance. It's the property or the person that's there. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go right down the line. I want to make sure that you focus on the bill that's before us, and then we'll move to those individuals who would like to speak in favor of the ordinance. Councilman Shea?
Sure. Councilman Scott, as I stated earlier in committee, and I'll say again, here in the 3rd District, I have heard from residents in the River Park area as well as the Miami Village area. There are a large number of rental properties in those neighborhoods, and I have heard at times, unfortunately, it seems as if the landlords might not be taking their responsibility seriously and screening the tenants as nearly as closely as they should. So, and that has created problems for homeowners because sometimes tenants are not behaving in a neighborly fashion. And so I will be supporting this bill just based on the feedback I've received from residents in my district.
If I could just remind the council that this is the portion just for questions of the presenters and not comments, please.
Thank you.
No questions.
No questions, I have comments later.
Councilmember Ballard, Councilmember Davis.
Yes, I have some questions. First of all, I have a question for the Chief of Police. The Chief, please teach me. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for your letter of support that you've shared. In other cities such as Seattle and other places that Councilman Scott talked about, there was a person in charge that was dedicated to monitor this program to make sure that it was done correctly and efficiently and fairly. And my concern that I've shared was I would personally like to know what is the timetable to hire a person who would be in charge? We're talking about implementing this in October. What is the timetable to do that? And I'll just preface that with the fact that there are a lot of vacancies that are still open under the current administration that have not been filled for several months. And my caution comes in with this question is, what is a timetable that will be put in place that will coincide with this being done in an effective manner?
Thank you for your question. Our goal will be to address this immediately. And if this bill passes tonight, we will make contact with those agencies that have a similar ordinance and have dedicated staff to establish a job description that I'll post internally to all of our sworn officers. We'll determine what rank is appropriate for this, given the experience of our colleagues in other cities. Post that, entertain their bids, interview for the job, and place somebody in there as soon as possible so they can get schooled on it from those other jurisdictions. And we'll have conference calls and Skype calls, and maybe do some site visits to those jurisdictions as well. I anticipate, Council, that it will be one full-time sworn officer and one clerk dedicated to the data collection on the clerk side, and the sworn officer will be the liaison to the property owners to resolve these issues as we go forward after the warning letters.
And you're looking at, you said internally, from that standpoint.
Correct. The sworn officer will be internal. We'll probably draft someone internally as well with record-keeping experience who may end up backfilling for that position. We'd like to get someone who already understands our record-keeping system and our operation to take those roles.
So that whole thing would require special appropriation from the council to create that position. Is that my understanding?
With a civilian clerk, it might in the next budget cycle, but we'll try to do it for now with existing staff.
I got you. All right, well, thank you. There are other questions I have. In terms of Councilman Scott, with the fines that will be collected, the $250, where do those fines go? Will it go to the police? Will it go to code? Will it go back to the general fund? Could you please explain that?
Well, as a businessman, I'd like to divide it up 3 ways, but we really can't because we don't have dedicated funds for all that. If 50% will go to into the police, I think it was the educational fund.
Law enforcement and law enforcement.
Yeah, and 50% to the general fund.
Okay. Thank you. With the intimidation factors that Councilman Davis had alluded to, a lot of times we've been looking at issues regarding the apartment complexes. Also have issues, as we talk about education, is that will there be any contact with the YWCAs and working with those, the prosecutor
in terms of issues of domestic violence.
Right.
But I'm very concerned with that part of it. As a social worker and counselor who has worked in domestic violence, to echo some of the concerns that were already raised, that intimidation piece is huge. Because one thing that happens, oftentimes for a woman to leave the home situation, it takes about 5 or 7. And so therefore, how will that be handled? I'm answering questions, y'all, so I wish that you would give me respect, please. I am going to answer the questions. But I do need to ask that part with the issue of domestic violence.
Yes, Councilman Davis, the one thing that we want to do is the October rollout, so we want to be able to collaborate with administration to be able to do PSAs, to do educational, informative information to all the stakeholders within our city, all the residents within our cities, to understand how chronic business is going to work, how it affects people. In light of what Chief Teachman said as well, as far as filling position, what we found in best practices around the country is that a full-time clerk and a full-time officer that can go out, continue the educational process, actually go out and meet with the large apartment complexes, meet with individuals, and kind of determine and see firsthand what's going on with the chronic nuisance situation. I'll give you one example. On Yakima, the officer in charge of that program up there, he told me that 3 times that he knows of, there were 3 domestic violence situations with women where he was able to come in, actually investigate, see what was going on, and bring in the YWCA, which is the program that they use, and get 3 women help and get them out of the situation that is there. That's kind of the nice thing about chronic nuisance, because it takes it to a certain level. There's a trigger event that happens for the police to look and say, what's really going on here? You know, not only to deem it on chronic nuisance, but actually to find out if someone actually needs help.
And I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the key things, that tying that into that education piece with that intimidation or something. And the last issue is we've gotten 2 issues. One, the sophomore, the letters, and they've met with the chief in the 5th and 6th district regarding the 5th district Miami Hill situation, and of course the Prairie Apartments. That has a high number that we're aware of. If I were to live in any one of those areas, in Sophomore or in Portage Prairie, with the passing of this bill, what can I anticipate? How will this bill help me if I live in those high areas where they have, we've seen all the, I see some of them here, and I also recognize that Portage Prairie Apartments is right down the street where I live. How will this passing of this bill tonight help me if I were to be a resident in those homes? Please explain.
One, it helps empower the residents to be able to call and say, hey, there's a situation that's continually to go on. And for all of us to actually be involved with that, from council members of the district at large, however, but also the police department, to see a pattern. What we're able to do at 3 calls, send a warning letter, so it's on someone's radar. Right now, a lot of times these aren't on the radar. Meeting with some of the apartment complex, the large ones that I've met with, you know, they're saying, well, we're just not getting the feedback that we should from the police department. I think this is not such a heavy-handed bill, but it's also an interactive, proactive bill, where it allows the chief to create a position to meet with these people and give them the information that they actually need. We have samples of forms that will, and letters that will go out, and I'm sure Chief Teachman is going to follow kind of that same pattern there. So the larger complexes actually know what's going on in certain apartment complexes. That was the biggest frustration that I heard from some of these apartment complexes, is we're just not getting the information, and we don't want to be blindsided. And I think this is a good way to work in it interactively with them. And some of the large complexes that I met with, they said, we would love to have that. We would love to have, basically, association with the police department to sit down and talk about corrective actions, issues, and how to resolve them and do stuff then.
Last one, the schools, there was high numbers of situations with the schools being affected by this kind of a situation. With the police having to go out to different elementary, high schools, middle schools, intermediate schools, what would then be the role, and how would this affect our public school system with this kind of process? Could you please explain?
It could affect it the same way, but there is standard operating procedures that the chief and that would develop and put into place, and also there's appeal process and remediation program. And then there's also, what are they, service officers, I'm sorry, that are already there. I think there's a program to be proactive to work with the police department as a good school.
Thank you for the question. And thank you.
If that's all the questions, we'll move now to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support of this particular bill? We ask you come to the podium, you state your name and address, and again, if I'm not mistaken, you have 5 minutes. And Councilman Mache will let you know when you have spoken for 4 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Dan Demler. I work out of the police department. I'm president of FOP 36. I'm here to let you know that FOP 36 voted to support this bill. We voted to support this bill because nuisance properties tax each shift by taking off to the way from other duties and areas of patrol. We do recognize there are many owners that hold their tenants accountable, but there are many that don't. As these owners begin to be held accountable, this should in turn get them to hold those on their property accountable. The notification system and remediation plan should also help open lines of communication between police and property owners and get everyone working together to improve the quality of life at these nuisance properties. This bill has potential to be a very valuable tool to lower the number of nuisance properties in our city. Lastly, if having an additional tool will make doing a job easier, it makes sense to have that tool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Judith Robert. I live at 1739 Riverside Drive, and I am currently the president of the Keller Park Neighborhood Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of our members. Our neighborhood is located on the northwest side of South Bend. And our association supports the chronic nuisance bill and would like to request that the Common Council pass the bill. At our meetings, residents of our neighborhood frequently express concerns about properties that have chronic code violations. In our association's attempt to address nuisance properties, we have become aware of the burden such properties place on the time and attention of the police and code enforcement departments, as well as the extreme length of time it takes to resolve these problems. Our residents want to see quicker resolution of problem properties. We would like to see the police spend more time doing neighborhood patrols and taking time to interact with the youth on the street, not spending their time tied up with these chronic problem properties. The majority of our neighborhood problems are with landlords who are making a profit from their rentals. And they're not willing at the same time to spend money on taking care of their properties, keeping them up to code, or dealing with their tenants. I told the story when I was here last time. I'm an ADT owner. I was shocked when I got my first bill from the city for too many false alarms. But, you know, it really made me pay attention. It made me figure out, why am I having false alarms? What's wrong? I need to call ADT, find out who's entering their code wrong. You know, a financial incentive does cause people to take issues more seriously, and I think that's a very important component to this. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for the support of the bill.
Hi, Rosemary. I live at 3534 Langley in South, back up here with South residents. We're here to show our support to the past resort. We share a fence line with what we consider a chronic problem. And this appears to be a tool that we can actually get something to move forward and get something done. There are only so many hours in a day, and there's only so many resources we can throw at this. Anything else we can have, we would appreciate as we do it.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Thornburg, and I live at 3508 Langley, also in Southmore. Just a couple of things that I've heard. I'm the neighborhood block captain for our neighborhood watch for 14 apartment buildings. Also, my particular building was recently shot at, The shots didn't come from Miami Hills. We were lucky that nobody got hurt or killed. Happened at 3 in the morning. I heard the first shot, but of course I was groggy, so I didn't quite know what exactly I heard. But got up to check to make sure nobody was breaking into my property. Was looking out my upstairs window when the next shots went off. The next day I found out shots did actually enter my neighbor's apartment. It went into the downstairs, where normally she sometimes has insomnia, and it actually went in where she normally sits. Luckily that night she was able to sleep well. Otherwise it might have been a different story. The other shot went into, and some of you may have already heard about it, went into another neighbor's apartment just down from her. That one went in the upstairs, into one of the entered into the closet, into a room where the baby was sleeping. Luckily it went through a computer and stopped the bullet. But again, that was just one night where our whole row of buildings was in jeopardy, and we were lucky. There are a number of actually this portion of our property backs up to that fence line. And I think the thing that you've got is not only the safety component, but fear. Fear to go out in our backyard. When will the next shot come? But it's just not for our community or our area. It's also for the Miami Hills residents. There are a lot of young families and children that go around. And I know at one of the meetings where it was discussed, one of the residents mentioned that somebody threw a loaded weapon on our side of the building, and I believe their children found it. There's another instance of where that could have ended very badly as well for one of our residents. What if it had been on the other side of the fence and one of the Miami Hills children had found it? Thought it was a play gun and shot one of their little friends. So, I know we're not the only property that has this problem. Looking on the list, I know we're not nearly as high as Courtyard or some of these other places, but we're on our way to being that, and we don't want it to get to that point. And like I said, for a lot of people that have talked about it, it's not just property damage or the safety factor, but this gives us hope, and it makes us feel like we're empowered. We try and do the right thing. We call the police get out there. If they don't catch it in the heat of the moment, there's only so much they can do. Southmore, as a resident, has taken good care of us. They put in extra lighting. They do security services at night coming through. So it's a cost that's affecting their business. And like Terry had said, sometimes it's difficult to rent out along the fence line because there are safety. So it also affects other business owners and property owners. So I would just encourage you to support this bill because it's not just about safety for the people who may live around the nuisance property, but also maybe a person that lives within the community or in the apartment complex or the single unit for the little children that might be in harm's way in that nuisance property. And I think people just need to be accountable. And like they said, you can't always go after the tenants, but the landlords have a responsibility. And I think it's time that we hold them accountable for who they rent out to. So I just encourage you to support it. Thank you.
I'm going to ask if there's anyone else wishing to come to speak in support, that you come to the podium now.
Okay, is it coming through? I'm Chris Alchinsky, 2403 Westmore Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46628, and I'm very much in support of this bill. In the past, I've been a renter, and I've had people living next to me where there's probably drug trafficking going on, police are coming back and forth. Eventually the people are evicted, but when you live in that situation, you have this horrible fear factor where you're always on edge. You come home, you kind of wonder, okay, what's going on? There's a bunch of people hanging out on the porch. Somebody's passing some white powder in a plastic bag over the porch, you see all these things happening. And it's really not fair to the other people to have to live like that. It's just not fair. So it's extremely stressful, and then you don't sleep all at night. You wonder what else is going on, or you hear strange noises or whatever. I know in the past some people have said that they pay taxes, so why should we have to pay? Why should we be fined? Well, I pay taxes as well, and I kind of feel like my tax money is going to all these calls, and maybe it could be used better, to help serve the community. I think also, as far as, abuse in women that are in battered situations, I was a volunteer for CANCO, which is a Child Abuse and Neglect Coordinating Agency, for about 2 years, where I was a parent aide. And I know that in our community, we have a lot of good services to help those women. A lot of times, it's very difficult to get them out of it, and they're afraid to make the move and so on. And hopefully with the police working with them, and you've got a person in charge kind of overseeing things, you can really facilitate and get those programs and get those women to get the courage to get out and to get into a home and into a safe setting. I was wondering at this time if I could just ask, just to see with a hand raised, how many people are in support of the bill right now? In conclusion, I certainly hope that you vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move, if there's no one else wishing to speak in support, this is the last call, then I'm going to go to those who wishing to speak in opposition. At this time, those who wish to speak in support of the bill, you must come to the podium now.
Christopher Huff, 1831 College Street. All neighborhoods in the city are important to its makeup. Everyone in this room knows deep down that this city has suffered dramatically in the past 3 decades. This is not something that's happened just recently. Unfortunately, all the neighborhoods have suffered sociological deterioration, which has led to physical deterioration. This is not something that has just started. It's not isolated. It's not simply caused by the mortgage meltdown and the housing crisis. Yeah, that situation certainly exacerbated the problem in this community, but it did not cause it. The housing crisis started exactly 6 years ago this month, June 2007. In almost every other community of quality, already dealt with their code enforcement ordinances, their nuisance ordinances, their multifamily crime programs. Here we are, South Bend, Indiana, just now dipping our toe in the water. Good step, fine. But this makes me sad for our community. It also makes me a little annoyed with our governmental personnel within this community. At the almost complete cessation, simple forethought, proactivity, anticipation, and simple business logic. I do not want my code enforcement or police department employees out there spinning their wheels time and time and time and time again. Such as a simple problem behind my house, our house in my neighborhood, where there's 15 calls on a little dog problem. So I want this stuff to be properly and efficiently addressed when it comes up. I do support the proposal, but only as a first step. I'd like to see it efficiently and rather quickly amended to include property maintenance problems as part of the mix. Thank you.
Thank you. As you come to the podium, state your name and if you are in support of the ordinance. Okay, seeing that we have no one else that's wishing to speak in support, we'll now move to those who wish to speak in opposition. We do ask you come to the podium, state your name and address, please.
My name is Reverend Greg Brown, 1238 Diamond. I'm totally not in support of this. I'm a member of the God Squad. I walk the streets of South Bend. A lot of people that's here that's in support of this. And the reason why I'm not is a lot of the areas and the youth that I deal with come out of Section 8 housing, the HUD housing. When they go to fill out an application, I know that there has to be some type of process that these families go through. Some of the numbers that he showed up there, the police calls are down low because you have policemen that live there, like in Maple Lane apartment. You see a police car out there. Our officers drive their cars home, and they park their cars where they live at. I'm glad they do that. But for us to start finding families that can't even afford to pay their rent, we had people to come downtown and file an order of protection, and they still are not getting properly protected. There's something sad about the communication. I've been in 3 different areas, and the chief of police said we got to use a vaccination to stop the violence in our community. I stood in Walmart about the guns. South Bend does not have the jobs, so the crime rate is high. Not just in an apartment complex, just not on the streets, not just the west side, the south side.
we're going to start fining people $250. That's not the answer. Because what's going to happen, people are going to take it in their own hands because they're not going to want to call. They don't want any communication right now with our community. We're in a state of emergency for more Jesus. We need a lot more praying and connected. We don't have no communication. Because if we had communication, little Shirley would still be living in our Shield Park. The sad part about it is we come here and we look at it on the paper. All due respect to Mr. Scott. I got a lot of respect for Tim Scott. I understand what he's doing. But we got a new police chief here that comes in to support this. He's visited this city. I live in it. And I'm saddened to see that we're going to come to the podium and we're going to say, well, hey, we got a chronic problem here. We have landlords that live out of the state. Nuisance problem. Code enforcement cuts their grass. Soon as the landlord evicts them, we got a bunch of trash that sits on the side of the road. Our code enforcement picks it up. We're not finding them for that. Our code enforcement, are we enforcing it? We might have the paperwork. We're setting up so many task forces. We're talking about fining. We're talking about doing this. We're talking about putting the community together. And we're starting this out. And when you go down the streets in these neighborhoods, the second district, you go through there and see how a landlord turns it up and evicts them. You see all these couches. You see all these refrigerators laying on the street. And it's the burden of South Bend. The code enforcement comes in. But on one hand, you say, we got the officers, let's get a relationship, let's stop locking our people up. On the other hand, you want to fine them. The school system, I work with our mentor there, they call for the police. So now we want to fine our schools. Then when they stop calling, and we have the problems like in Connecticut, the things that's happening, then we're going to really have a problem. There is a problem in South Bend where there's no communication. Everybody says, well, we're going to do better, let's get better. Thank God for my pastor that's sitting there, Pastor Williams. He goes on the radio, Bible, talking to people, trying to put a relationship that put us back. A chaplain trying to put us back. But if we finding people and snatching people down because they're trying to do the right thing and communicate, we're going to have a problem in South Bend. Thank you.
My name is Henry Brown. I represent the Citizen United for Better Government. Also, I respect what Mr. Scott is doing. He's my councilman. But we have laws already. All we got to do is enforce them. What I'm saying by that is this. Each one of them complexes, each one of these houses, or whatever the nuisance is, them bigger complexes, we need police there. We need to be getting money set aside for these sworn officers and trained and hound stuff like this. And whoever owns these complexes, you need to send them letters, letting them know you would lose this conglomerate if you don't control it, we'll take it. And you will see a difference in those complexes. But don't put the burden on citizens. These landlords, go down there, I go every day, I find out who owns this house, that house, start sending them letters, letting them know, we'll take that house. But all I'm saying is, enforce the laws that you have. It's all you have to do. I want to serve the community more than anybody. I ran one of the biggest sports programs in the Midwest. And whenever there was a problem, the mayor of the city called me and said, Sam, this is what you got to do to keep your program running. And I had to do it. My security was running me, not security South Bend, $20,000 a summer. And that worked the whole summer. Well, they're going to shut that program down. And I need South Bend police officers. So all you got to do is use the laws that are before you. I don't know who owns Holly Field. I don't know who owns Miami Hill. But somebody owns them. And let them know, if you don't comply with this, we will take it. By any means necessary, we go to court, and we will own it, and we will make the people safe in that. So, don't all of a sudden just start coming around trying to make new laws. Use the ones you got. They're just like the hot spots in the city. Each one of you guys know where the hot spots in the city. You know what we need the police patrol is at. We have one policeman that live on my daughter's street, 230 North City. They have one little boy. Made the policeman run out of there. House still ain't so. Nice house too. But he ran out of there because that little boy broke in, took his computer, cut the wires to the lawn. One kid. The minute that kid was locked up, neighborhood was peaceful. Beautiful neighborhood. So you can get it done, not with more laws, just enforce the words you got.
My name is Christine Jacobs. I live at 52942 Committee Drive, South Bend. I just want to say that with Section 8 being that it is, that if they residents get a certain amount of calls out to police, a lot of times they'll be evicted, and that don't even seem to work. So I don't see why this is going to work, because a lot of people, if they get kicked off of Section 8, that means they have to pay regular rent, and half the time they don't even have the money to do that. Some of them don't even pay the $9, $7 for rent that they have with Section 8. So if they're not worried about that, I don't see why they would worry about this. And also, being a foster parent for 16 years, there's numerous times that I had to call, and I guess I was a nuisance with the police department. But being a foster parent, you go through a lot of stuff with foster kids, and they have to come out over and over and time again. And a lot of foster parents do live in apartment buildings and stuff, so I think maybe somebody should come up with a better solution to this problem.
Thank you.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. I guess I'm kind of on the fence with this. It seems like we're trying to wrap up code enforcement issues, dirty lawns, trash, and also nuisance calls to the police department, all in one little package. And they're two separate issues that we have here in our city. Obviously, everybody complains and says, hey, our tax dollars go to this, our tax. We know we pay taxes, and I'm a landlord. I pay a lot of taxes. My properties aren't nuisance properties. But if I've got a tenant in there who decides they want to call the police, I'm still confused. Is the tenant going to get fined for being a nuisance? Or are they going to send the fine to me because my tenant's a nuisance? You know, Mr. Scott says, well, look, if your landlord calls you and says he's going to evict you, then I'm intimidating my property owner or the tenant. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. This whole ordinance that he's bringing up kind of reminds me of the Patriot Act, you know, and now you've got them seizing cell phone records and everything else. You've got code enforcement for a reason. You talk to the code enforcement department and ask them how many fines they issue every year. It's very few compared to the complaints that they go out and address. So start finding those people on code enforcement. That's got nothing to do with it. They have their own nuisance rules in order already. As far as the police department goes, you know what? I pay taxes. I pay normal taxes. I pay property taxes. Guess what? Everybody here on the council, no disrespect, you hit me with a public safety tax a few years ago to address money needed for police so that they can respond. That is their job. I understand it's a hassle. I understand that they may not like to go to these places. You can find tools and you can find ways to resolve this problem. But trying to find people who are calling you isn't going to do it. We got a 6-year-old little girl that died last week. Guess what? They were called to that residence 4 times. One more time it would have been a nuisance, according to this ordinance. This needs a lot more work. It's not something you need to pass. It's not something that needs to be shoved down the citizens' throats again, such as the lower tax and the public safety tax. It really sounds like another money grab. We've got problems. They need to be solved. There's better ways to do it than what you're doing here.
Thank you.
My My name is Mark Conover. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you concerning the chronic problem property ordinance.
Give your address, please.
I'm with the Indiana Apartment Association, 9100 Keystone Crossing, Indianapolis, Indiana. The members of our organization are the owners and management companies representing 210,000 multifamily apartment units across the state. We represent nearly 3,000 units here in South Bend. After consulting with our attorney, we have some major concerns with the current draft of this ordinance. Our first question is on the verified complaint portion of the ordinance. On page 4, in the definitions portion of the ordinance, it states that verified complaint shall refer to a police documenting call for service that an incident took place at a specific property address requiring sworn police personnel to be dispatched or cause to respond. The term does not include incidents involving an occupant of the premises who is a victim of the crime. And the question that it raises in our minds, and it's already come up tonight, is about domestic violence. What do you do when a victim of domestic violence who's living in the same home as the perpetrator who is committing the crime, how is that counted against the property? Because it's both. Because the victim would not be charged, but the person perpetrating that would be charged. So the home, that address, would be considered a chronic problem property if it had more than 5. So the next concern we have is Section 13159 that creates the service calls fees for chronic problem properties. Subsection A determines the amount, while subsection B states that a property owner shall incur repeat nuisance service call fees for a property designated by the South Bend Police Department. And I raise that question because the next section of the ordinance is Section 13-160, which our question is, do you get fined or is there a fee? Because this ordinance has both. And the fee is not identified anywhere in the ordinance of what that amount would be. It says it would be determined as of May 1st each year. The other thing we have is the version of the ordinance that concerns remediation agreements. It's under Section 13-158. This section only addresses properties more than 50 dwelling units or above. They are those properties that provide overnight lodging or that sell alcohol. Looking at the data that was presented today at the earlier meeting and today, it seems to me that the single-family conversions are a bigger problem, yet they are excluded from this portion of it. They would not be subject to this remediation program. I'm curious why that would be. Why are we singling out multifamily properties of 50 units and above? And the answer to the remediation efforts is that there are none and there's no plan to have them for a single property. Then it looks like selective enforcement of what you're trying to accomplish, that you're just going to enforce this on the multifamily properties. Thank you.
My name is Linda Orange, and I'm 8425 Woodville Crossing, Indianapolis, and I'm representing an apartment owner in the South Bend area of 201 units, all senior housing. My question or my request to the council is that we maintain a safe community and will not be one of your chronic problem properties. However, we believe that an apartment home is the same as it's an address. It's a single address to all 201 of our residents, and therefore we should be treated the same as a single-family home. If 5 calls go out to a single-family home, then 5 calls should be applied to an address within an apartment community as well. I wanted to thank the council members who responded to my email. I have the same question that the previous speaker had about the structure on the fees and the fines, so I hope that's addressed in the ordinance as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. At this time, the public hearing portion is now closed, and we'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal. I would like to ask our council attorney if she could, at this time, if you are prepared to respond to the legal questions, and then we'll ask Councilmember Tim Scott to respond to some of the questions to clarify who's actually going to be fined, some of the property owners, I tried to take as many notes as possible. Issue of the code, do we have bills already on the books to deal with this issue? But it is the police job to respond to calls. Why are we looking at this particular ordinance at this particular time? So we only have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I'll be quick. With regard to Mr. Conover from Indianapolis, his question with regard to the remediation agreement, it is mandatory for the larger multifamily dwelling in any establishment that sells alcoholic beverages. However, it is permissible for a remediation agreement for anyone else. So that is another tool that could be used there. With regard to the verified complaint and the fine issue that was brought up, the fees would only be charged when the thresholds have been exceeded. That both the police department, code, and legal department are required at periodic times during the year to file what their actual cost would be, because it has to be reasonably related to the service that they are providing. The fines after they meet that threshold would be treated as any other fine. So with that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Scott.
You want to clarify between fees and fines?
If you want to take that, I'll
No.
Again, the fee is only a charge that is reasonably related to the service that would be provided by the police department, legal department, or code with regard to the investigation of an incident. Those fees are calculated at this point at approximately $250, as Councilmember Scott did in his PowerPoint presentation. The actual fine is spelled out in the last section of this, and those are citations that would be issued for an ordinance violation citation payable to the Ordinance Violation Bureau. The maximum that can be collected is, again, $250. But that would be for a separate violation over and above those thresholds.
Thank you, Ken. Just to rebut some of the comments and questions that were brought up. First of all, the chronic nuisance is designed and directed towards property owners, not the tenants and not the people living there, unless they actually own the property. So the idea is, yes, we have taxes that are going towards police and Lowit and that, and this is actually putting the burden back on the property owner. And for calls time and time again, so that cost of the police department goes to those property owners. As far as HUD, we looked at the HUD lease. If the HUD lease is followed to the letter of the law, which is a whole other jurisdiction than here, there wouldn't be calls for service to HUD properties. They are very strict on what's going on. One of the issues with HUD is there's over 3,000 houses or dwellings within South Bend that are accepting and willing to take HUD personnel, and there's only 8 inspectors to follow up. There is an issue with that, and that needs to be addressed. That's not within our jurisdiction. It doesn't mean that people are being kicked out just because this comes up. Tenants have rights, and I think that's part of the educational program. When I talk to a lot of people dealing with chronic nuisance, it's here's the information on tenants' rights and how to deal with that. I just lost my place, sorry. So again, I think good landlords will know that if the police are showing up 2 weeks, every other week within 60 days to the property, and we'll do things to rectify that situation. Again, we're sending out a letter after 3 violations, so the police are looking at it. If you are a victim, if there's calls to a place where you are a victim, that is not going to be counted as chronic nuisance. So, and with that said, I think what we got to realize is the burden and the pressure and the lack of quality of life that revolves around some of these issues. We not only have to look at the tenants that are within these complexes. I met people in Miami Hills and Courtyard that want something to change, and they need to look at what effect it has around the whole entire property. And when the landlord or the property owner isn't around and doesn't care, we need to look at it and address it. And they need to be part of the solution, and that's where the fine is for this. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move back to the council. I'm going to go right down the road in regards to any comments that you would like to make, and then would like to entertain a motion. We're going to start with this end, Councilman Furlan.
Sure, I'll just say thank you to Tim, Karen, and Darren for all their hard work in putting this together. I think this is a great step towards making these areas better.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman White. I am going to be in support of this bill. The only thing that I would like to look at, though, is a delay for 2 more weeks. And the reason why I would like for a delay for 2 more weeks, my council friends, is that some of the issues that those who are in opposition shared, I think we need to at least look at them and put them in there. I mean, we've gone through a tremendous issue here. You heard me ask questions regarding domestic violence and everything else. I would like for that to be completely spelled out in the bill. When it comes down to violence of kids, violence of women, violence of men get beat up too. I have men who come and get family violence. I really want that to be dealt with. And I want that to be spelled out clearly, not just grouped in a whole group of sections, okay? Because I think that I have just seen too many calls come from these kind of homes throughout. I used to work at a hotline, okay? And there's a lot of phone calls I used to answer these kind of phones, and they come repeated. I would like for that to be spelled out completely when it comes down to that issue. I know our city attorney touched on the issue of 50 homes, under 50 homes, you said permissible, what was the word? I would like for that to even have a little stronger language to permissible for remediation under that part of it. Because we're going to, I think those was a good point the lady shared from Indianapolis. For those who are in larger apartments, it's required. A lot of our challenges still have these single homes or smaller places. If you have an apartment or you only have 10 homes, then it'd be permissible. I would like to have a little bit more teeth in that, and I don't think that's going to really delay everything from that standpoint. Personally, I would like to really have a timetable clear with the chief of police. I'm very concerned that we've had a chief of police for over months, and that has got, I just need a commitment letter or something that we're going to have somebody in place. I mean, more than just our support. I mean, it's not to have support, it's not to get something to the mayor to have support. But we've had so many key offices of the city that have been left open for too long. And to have something of this nature, and then they rush in October. I want somebody who understands domestic violence. I want somebody who understands those kind of things. I'm glad we're looking at a local person this time. I appreciate that because they understand the issues. But at the same time, I really want somebody to be on hand and they can take time to work with the domestic violence, the YMCA, the prosecutors, all those issues from that standpoint. And I want this because I don't want to just create some legislation that we all sit up here and look all great and everything else, and then the people in Sophomore and Prairie and everybody else, we have hope. But I want more than just hope. I want action. And so therefore, I don't think asking for 2 more weeks to put this in there and hearing those concerns, I listened to those who were opposed, and I listened as well as those, because I thought they brought out some things that it won't take too long for us to tweak. And fines, penalties, schools, better look at that issue too, but I think that's covering my list. And if we can just look at that for 2 weeks, Dr. Varner, I'll move on to you.
Okay, Dr. Varner.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. There are probably few, if any, pieces of legislation to come out of here that are perfect as they exit. I hope
we're open to looking at this down the road. If some of these questions proved, or some of these hypothetical situations prove to be a problem. If it isn't enforceable, if it can't be worked out, it doesn't do us any good to have it sit on the books. So I think the idea of addressing some of these questions that have been offered or presented to us this evening over the next couple of weeks is a good idea. If that doesn't happen and we adopt this, I think we have to be willing to look with regards to whether it's the number of incidences per property or the time frame to get a real accurate way to address it. I just don't think this is going to come off, if it's adopted, as a perfect product tonight. If it isn't, if it is adopted, if it goes forward and it isn't, I'm more than willing to go back and look at it to make the corrections that we need to do, so it becomes the effort that we want it to be. And those folks who are living adjacent to chronic properties or affected by the chronic properties as envisioned by this ordinance, I know are looking for an opportunity to see something in the way of relief. And if we just enforced laws on the books, perhaps that would have worked, but we haven't been doing that apparently, because what we have been doing hasn't worked. We can all agree on that. Having said that, if there isn't a motion accepted motion to continue this for 2 weeks, I'll support it in the current stance. We'll be ready to address conflicts in the future.
Councilman Deeder?
Thank you, Chairperson. I could talk for probably hours, Dr. Furlick, on this, but I'll cut it down as much as I think is possible. Number one, we're dealing with society when we talk about this. In the council, the police department, no one can control how different people act in South Bend. One of the major things that this is going to do is now give us basically a template. And I will thank Councilmember Scott and Councilmember White. We attempted to do this probably back in 04 and 05 under a previous administration. We tried to do a landlord-tenant registration, hybrid of this. We went to then chiefs of that police department at that time, so I commend Chief Teachman for stepping up to the plate. And in my view, this is going to have to be more than one person, because we're just talking to people who live in Sophomore Heights. I've just chased people for decades coming out of Miami Hills for shooting, robberies, murders, and so on. Like the lady alluded to, and this is a for instance, if the call comes out to the police department, the 3,500 sophomores for shots fired officers get there, that comes back to 3,500 sophomores, even though it was in Miami Hills. If there is a report where your car shot up, whether it be shots in the air, someone shooting at someone, and you call the next morning because your car was shot up, came from Miami Hills, comes back to sophomore. The person who will be in charge, and hopefully it's more than one, and maybe 2 or 3, you're going to have to go through 300 to 400 calls a day that the police department gets. When we go out to a call, there's a code 1, which is just a summary of what happened. I went to 1814 Diamond. There was a fight. People left me before I was gone. Okay, that would fit under this. Another, we went to 18 Diamond. We arrested someone for being drunk. That's a code 3. The code 2 is someone got beat up. Suspect up before. The person that's in charge of this has a very big task to categorize that, to 1, know what they're doing, 2, know about the area. The other instance that Tim alluded to, the people up in Washington of giving the social, I guess, amenities that would be, I think is fantastic. We used to do that under the late Chief Marciniak, where we had conflict resolution with the police department 3 times a week, where we would take these calls, which actually started on the criminal managing investigation a long time ago, and we would bring both parties, and we would, police department, through the prosecutor's office, and we would give counseling. So they were able to come to a resolution on the conflict. That's one of the biggest inequities in our society, that people don't know how to do that. It's either pulling the gun or fighting and so on and so forth. But to Tim's part, where people are getting the opportunity to go find housing for better women, that is going to take you, no, say it takes you half the morning. You're down 350 calls that you have to go through. That task, and it's going to be very important that when the chief puts that out, and when he does interview how he thinks that, it's going to have to be at least 2 people, in addition to the civilian personnel, because I see, besides this, I see a great opportunity for South Bend to start giving people the opportunity to come to conflicts and get out, and so those people don't get hurt, all that stuff. Oliver's point about the domestic violence, people being hurt, families, that will be taken care of by the police department through arrest. Then it goes to the family violence unit, the prosecutor's office, that part is handled. But all the other things that slips through the cracks, let's say you live at 719 Scott, you're out down at Lindsay and Scott, that's where the call comes to, you run home for the police. It goes to Lindsay and Scott. Let's say you're on Kaiser Court reported, you're shooting a gun, you run into your house on Scott. Police don't know. All the stuff that's going on, that's why someone is going to have to review. And a case in point, up at the apartments on St. James, if you plug the address at 112, it's got 6 calls. If you do the 100 block of Eddy and you do the 1100 block of Colfax, we got 47 calls. So that's my biggest concern. That's where this thing needs all the nuts and bolts and everybody to be on the same page of finding out when we're going to calls. Case in point, the talking apartments, elderly people, they're top of the list. Well, they're calling because they may have dementia, they're thinking someone walked through their door and took their stuff. You have to analyze that. You just can't run the calls. And again, that is going to be a long, long day for whoever gets that to go call by call by call from code 1, code 2, code 3 to put that together. But that being said, once we work that out, and we're going up to October, so maybe, I don't know what the time period is, they pick someone and start training and give them a month in that vacuum to go, okay, what happened last month? Well, the first detail went here 4 times, and these guys went here. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, we contacted the people in Indianapolis that came up here tonight and have 3,200 units. That's the kind of thing that this person's going to have to do. It's a lot of busy work. It's going to be a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of things that on the surface you don't see, but just the emails, the letters, and all the things that you're going to have to do. It's going to be a very tough job. But if we can pull this all together and bring in the other things, the alcohol issues, the other things that have people mental health, education inequities, substance abuse, that we can start red flagging the house on Diamond where we've been there 18 worldwide, where we have a mother who doesn't care about her kids, she drinks celebrations and everything. Well, let's go. Child Protective Services, Children's Services, to put that out there, because now we don't have it. I get a call there, and then it was left where I can find people and put 2 and 2 together. It's just an informal report. I think once Tim, if we do adopt this, to get all that going and all the benchmarking, the templates to put that together, I think it'll be a fantastic thing. So I can understand Oliver's point, but I think if we get this, it will always be a work in progress. And again, 36 years of doing this stuff, it's always going to be work in progress to improve it. So I think this is a great step. And again, Tim and Karen, the administration, and Chief Teachman for jumping out, because this is going to be a very, very daunting task. But I know we can get it done.
Thank you. Councilman Furley?
I hope as a council we prioritize this bill. When a patient comes in the emergency room with multiple fractures after an automobile accident, he's bleeding to death, he's got pelvic fractures, long bone fractures, and he also has hand and foot fractures. We address the bleeding first, then the pelvis, then the long bones. In the next 2 or 3 days, you can address the hand or the foot. He's not going to die of those fractures. And what this bill does specifically, it addresses chronic nuisance properties. And for instance, from Courtyard Apartment last year, there were 80 people that went to the emergency room for gunshot, rape, knife, all the way down the line. Do you realize what not only the moral and ethical dilemma we have with that situation, but what the cost to you taxpayers is of that? It's an enormous cost that wasn't even included in his slides. So I think this is the best piece of legislation in my short stay that I've seen, and I congratulate Tim and Derek and Karen in my 1.5 years here. So the diagnosis, let's be very specific, is irresponsible landlords, irresponsible tenants. And the treatment is this chronic nuisance ordinance, and I have to congratulate him again. I only wish they would have made it tougher, but the enemy of good is better, so I'm willing to vote for this because I think it's the best we have.
Councilman Shea?
Sure. I'll just repeat what I had said earlier in listening to the residents of my district, specifically in River Park and the Miami Village area. I have heard from homeowners that have had a number of issues with renters and absentee landlords. I hope with this bill that it will hold the landlords more accountable. and be more thorough in the screening process of their residents. So I will be supporting this bill.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, thank you. As always, I enjoy our republic and how we are able to debate issues in democracy. I believe that the folks that sponsored this particular piece of legislation did what they thought was best. Although I'm not completely sold on the idea that all three of them believe that this is the best piece of legislation, based upon comments on how some things should be reworked and how many people should probably be offered positions to help enforce it, to change this and change that, and to change this and change that. I've heard a number of people come up and say, well, when we just carry it over till we figure those things out. Well, there's nothing wrong with carrying those things over till we figure them out, but will we ever figure those things out? You're dealing with people. You can't legislate these parts. People are who they are. And one thing I do know is that when this bill came up, the origin of it came up as a courtyard place issue. Courtyard place turned into something that was a lot less than what it was before. And that happened because concerned council members took the initiative to go out, along with folks from the police department and the police force, to eradicate some of the issues that were present out there at Courtyard Place. And that was by enforcing the current law. It was done by people putting their time in, doing their job, and making sure that their job was complete. As a result, it went from top of the list down to somewhere in the middle of the list, if I remember correctly. So I think that if we were to really look at what we're doing here, it's called doing your job and getting your job done. It's not adding more rules to the book so that we can continue to deal with the city code book so we can go over 30 pages. But with all those things being said, I've noticed how other cities have reacted to this sort of issue. And everybody wants to live in Pleasantville. I do too. I want to live in a utopian society. I think everybody else does. However, again, we're not allowed that because humans have their own minds. You see that on a commercial with Liberty Mutual. As funny as that commercial is, it's the truth. We do just messed up things. But currently, Chicago is kicking their population out and they're tearing schools down. One of the same folks that come from these same areas, and as a matter of fact, a lot of those folks are moving to South Bend, Indiana. Many of them are in the 2nd District, in Beacon Heights. And so as they are trying to get rid of their problem, it becomes our issue. And so we try to tackle it in the same manner. Now, we're not ripping down the schools and destroying their living quarters, but what will actually happen here is that our St. Joe County Jail will be full, the courtrooms will be overran, and we have a situation now where we're talking about the socioeconomic status of South Bend. I don't necessarily think chronic households or residents is the issue. I looked over at some numbers earlier, and I looked at some studies. There was a study from Ohio State that they talked about a high crime rate is linked to low wages and unemployment. I looked at another narrative that was done by Matthew Friedman and Emily Owens. It says low-income housing, development, and crime linked together. And then I saw another one on there that said youth from low-income families, and it's a .gov address. Well, it was obviously a governmental agency that looked over crime and poverty running hand in hand. Here in Indiana, the unemployment rate is at 8.5%. The national average is 7.6%. South Bend's unemployment rate is 4.2%. Well, no wonder why we have all of these issues. There's a fact that crime exists everywhere. There's a fact. You put a police officer on every corner and the crime still exists. And there's also a fact that crime is in impoverished areas. I just don't feel like or even think because we were able to define certain areas and also certain developments throughout the city with the report that being heavier on crime will change the behavior. We also see where we have examples of officers living in these apartment complexes at a reduced rate for security purposes, and crime still happens, and the calls are still there. I think there's a foundational issue that we're really missing here, and I think it has a lot to do with employment and the lack of employment here in St. Joe County and South Bend, Indiana. And I think if we spend as much time as on trying to recruit employment to the city of South Bend as we do with criminalization and fee structures and nuisance and all these other things that are ugly that none of us want to see. The truth is, I don't want to see them either. But if we just change our priorities just a tad bit over to trying to get employment opportunities available in this area, we will be doing ourselves more of a public benefit than a public disgrace. Because, again, we're just adding to what's already out there. Just continue to add to. And so I'm in favor of reworking this and pushing it over for a couple more weeks if that's what we can do to try to rework some of these things. But if we don't begin to handle our employment problem, our job recruitment problem, and making sure folks are employed here, we're just adding more and more to the same mixture. And it's just going to balloon into something else that we can't control it.
I would like to say, as one of the co-sponsors of this particular ordinance, that we've spent a number of months working through a number of meetings, talking with a number of property owners. It is designed for irresponsible property owners as well as irresponsible tenants. It continues to be a work in progress. And I think that as we begin to look at the implementation date of October the 15th, that it will give us the opportunity to address issues, it will give us opportunity to work with the schools and to work with businesses, as well as to educate those that need to be brought up to date in regards to the essence of this particular bill. We've heard a lot in regards to domestic violence. I think that's the area that we need to address. I think one question that was asked, the victim versus who would actually be fined if you were to go into a situation such as that. If this ordinance is passed, I will ask that we will have every 2 weeks an update in regards to the progress questions. I would ask that the questions that were posed tonight, that they would be put together as quickly as possible, that those questions be placed on our website. Every council member should receive those questions if you have any feedback in regards to how we can move forward towards the October 15th implementation deadline date. I know that I, as a co-sponsor, would welcome that feedback, but again, if this bill is passed, I would ask under the Health and Public Safety for a progress report. And I would ask every council member to work with us as we move forward to ensure that our citizens, they have a right to live in a safe neighborhood. They have a right to not have to deal with some of these issues. Likewise, we as a city, we have a responsibility to educate our residents as well. So I believe that as we work collectively together, that we'll come out with a situation that will meet the needs of our community. And again, that would be my recommendation if and when this bill is acted upon.
I didn't make a motion,
I just said it's
accepted. As a substitute, I'd like to make a favorable recommendation for 913.
okay.
Could I ask, President, could he add the language that Councilwoman White just added to that as a part of his motion? Could you share it again?
That I would ask that every 2 weeks that we will have a progress update through the Health and Public Safety in regards to the process of moving from the police department, the selection of those individuals that will be responsible for implementation we would come as co-sponsors in regards to the type of engagement that we will have with the city, working with administration in regards to education, working with some of those areas that we know we need to have face-to-face engagement with prior to the October 15th implementation date.
Could that be added?
That's a lot.
Well, that's a lot. I wouldn't do it on maybe a monthly report.
Monthly.
Monthly report. That's it, monthly. Okay. But
I said every 2 weeks, but I have no problem. I think the issue is that the issue at this point, since I had made some suggestions, the issue for me is that we move forward and that we hold not only ourselves accountable, but for those individuals who we must be involved with in terms of implementation. So I don't want us to lose sight that we have accountability and that we're moving forward. I have no problems with the ones that won't
happen. So therefore, if I understand the question, so then you would like to include the sponsors, well, Mike won't be here, but Chief Teachman and whoever else from probably our city attorney. The one thing I do have to mention, we have a new city attorney, and I think we're going to have a much more aggressive approach to dealing with all this. So that really helps of how we'll be doing that. So, with everything we have included, you understand? You understand all that? We're good to go? Went to the meetings? Okay, have a second. Second.
As we move and second it, all those in favor of the motion as outlined with the areas of recommendations, may I hear your vote?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
The motion carries.
Order of questions about that. Who's going to be updating us? How is the update going to happen? Clearly we're having issues with communication around here. I don't want to air very largely. However, who is responsible for that communication? And what format is that communication going to be given in? This is why I said we need a 2-week time period that we can look over these things because more things keep coming up. Every time somebody says something, another thing comes up.
I, as chair of the Health and Public Safety Committee, I will pledge that I would work to ensure that all the department heads that are responsible for implementation, that I will put in writing the timeline for reports, written reports, and that will be my understanding and my expectation that we will have those reports as they would come through the Health and Public Safety Committee.
Okay. My last question for clarification. Who are those department heads?
Okay. One would be legal, code enforcement, police department, and have I left any? Those are the 3 main ones.
So legal would actually do our legal representation directly with you?
Well, now, in the past, our legal has worked very closely with the corporate counsel. I have no problems working through our attorney, addressing questions. I would encourage council members, if you have any questions, to submit those directly to Kathy, and then we'll work through that process.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that 1813 be continued to the 24th. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, may I hear your vote?
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. I now entertain a motion to rise from the floor.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries.
Full council is now in session third quarter. Let's go with third reading of 913. Okay. Third reading on a bill of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 13 of the South Bend Municipal Code by the inclusion of new Article 12 entitled Chronic Problem Property Regulations.
A motion to amend as it was in the committee of the whole.
So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposition? Now we have a motion on the amended version of 913. I'd like to ask for the adoption of passage of the amended version.
Second.
Good morning. Mr. Scott. Aye. Mr. Henry Davis.
Can we please stop? I'm getting confused for whatever reason.
913, so.
That's what you're going to talk about, right?
Yes.
Didn't you just ask for continuation for 2 weeks?
No. Yes, for 1813.
That was that.
1813 was continued to 2020.
Oh, okay. I just said I don't know what happened. Next.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Dr. Furlick.
Aye.
Dr. Varner.
Aye.
Vice President Oliver Davis.
Aye, and thanks for the adjustment.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Mr. Furlick.
Yes, Ehrlich?
Okay, President Dieter.
Aye. Gavin, right here.
Mr. Furlick.
So we're talking about the bill that we just voted on. Oh, nuisance. Aye. He's aye.
913 is passed by a vote of 8-1.
Thank you, and proceed to resolution 1338, please.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, supporting the Green Roof Initiative for Century Center.
Thank you, we had a committee report on this earlier.
Bill number 1338, supporting Green Roof Initiative, also considered came before the Park Committee earlier today, and was sent to the full council for favorable recommendation.
Thank you, we have a presenter, please, with a short presentation, I believe.
Can we run it?
Should I use the mic? Is my voice carrying? Okay, I've been asked to do this as quickly as possible. I just want to present to you an organization called Greening the Bend, and what this is my fellowship with IU South Bend Center for a Sustainable Future. We expanded ourselves into a nonprofit that hopes to raise awareness of water as a natural resource, conservation of water as a natural resource, as well as energy and other resource management, and to try to raise awareness for how citizens and municipalities can promote projects that conserve our resources. Our means of doing this is to connect the arts, educational, business, and sustainability and build governmental communities. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to initiate some projects in South Bend that we feel will help bring South Bend into a 21st century city. One of the things, when you talk about being a 21st century city, we look at places like, for example, New York's Convention Center, where we're looking at stormwater management using green roofs. We're looking at stormwater management and heat mitigation using green living walls. We're looking at stormwater management using complete streets such as permeable pavers, violet trails, green medians, and that sort of thing, and putting our resources above ground rather than putting all our dollars below ground to address stormwater issues. The things that we're hoping to promote are the triple bottom line of economic, environmental, and social awareness. One of our biggest concerns for Greening the Bend is stormwater management, and just a quick overview for the public. The way our stormwater system works right now, all of our sewer water goes into a system that is also combined with with our rainwater. The pollution that goes on our asphalt, sidewalks, lawns is picked up and is mixed in with our sewer system, and when there's too much rain, that goes into our river, which is what the bottom picture shows. Now, our city is trying to address that with by putting big pipes in the ground and putting in big holding cisterns. But there are other solutions that as citizens and municipalities can look at. One of the first things that we can ask citizens to do is to install rain barrels. Those collect water at a person's home. You can use the rainwater to water your plants, wash the car, clean out your bathroom litter box, that sort of thing. Permeable pavers up in the upper right-hand corner, those are ways that we can help the stormwater return to our into the soil and return to the river in a more natural way rather than rushing at high velocity through stormwater pipes. The left picture is a picture of the City Hall in Chicago. Half of that, they put a green roof on, the other half the county runs that portion of the building, and the county didn't want anything to do with the green roof, but the city, the Mayor Daley said, we're going to go ahead and do that.
of course, not only is that mitigating stormwater, but on a 80-degree day, the side that has the tar roof, that measured about 150 degrees, whereas on the green roof side, that was still about 80 degrees ambient temperature. So you're talking about heat mitigation in addition to stormwater mitigation. And so, of course, you can only imagine which side of the building has higher heat and air conditioning bills. And so what we'd like to propose for South Bend is Greening the Bend, a nonprofit organization. What we'd like to do is try to raise, we are going to raise private and grant money to install a public accessible rooftop garden on the roof of the Century Center. This is a beautiful artist rendition by an architecture guy by the name of JSG. This is above the June Edwards wing of the South Bend Museum of Art. It's part of the Century Center. The roof right now is leaking, and the City of South Bend does not have any funds in place, at least for the next 3 years, to replace the membrane of this roof. What we're proposing to do is raise the funds through private and grant funding to not only replace the membrane of the roof, remove the rock valve that's up there now, but to also install living trays of low-maintenance sedum plants that will flower and provide stormwater management and heat mitigation, as well as something lovely to look at from the County City building. I think some of you have offices here. You'll be able to see this roof from the many floors of the Doubletree Hilton Hotel, and of course along this walkway here you'll be able to see the roof. In addition, it will also be public accessible. You'll be able to have the Century Center will be able to have small venues there, and then there'll be a public access around the perimeter. Right from the get-go, once we get this going, the city will realize a $70,000 benefit from this roof. We have a lot of community supporters already on board for this. We will continue to use the Rain Barrel project as a vehicle to continue to generate support for this project. And what we're asking is your support as the council to support this resolution, to agree that this is a good idea. I'm inviting all of you to attend the Rain Barrel Ball September 7th. The evening wearing garden gloves recommended but not required. I'm also asking each council member to consider painting a rain barrel. I have a couple of council members who have agreed already to paint rain barrels, and this is a crop of this year's rain barrels. Feel free to be inspired, to be creative. We have St. Margaret's House has painted a rain barrel. We've got kiddos from Our Lady of Hungary, professional artists, Good Shepherd Montessori. So if you would please support this resolution, attend the Rain Barrel Ball, paint your rain barrel, and help us find underwriters. We greatly appreciate it because we are Greening the Bend.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Does anyone like to speak in favor of this resolution? For opposition, seeing none of those, council. Recommendation?
Yes, Leader. One question. And I think this is going to go to Mark Neal, the city controller. If you have time for me right now. The question I have is that stated that there was no funds for the city to fix its own property. And we found out earlier, well, I was educated earlier, that the Century Center is under the ownership of the Redevelopment Commission. The Redevelopment Commission is the sole source who is able to get funds from the 5th District. As I was starting what I read in my understanding that 5th District funds were supposed to help improve the infrastructure of the city. I would think that this would be directly aligned with what the 5th District is supposed to do. Not against the project, as a matter of fact, I'm participating in the project. But what I'm trying to get at is, if the roof needs to be repaired, why isn't it being repaired with the funds that are in that particular 5th District, which is down here downtown?
For the Mark Neal City Controller, for the Century Center, we have a capital fund for the Century Center, which is under pressure because of the lengthy list of capital projects that have been identified through a 5-year plan by the Board of Managers and the Working Committee on the buildings. Regarding the downtown TIP district,
because that's a redevelopment action. So my comment would only be that the downtown TIF district is also under financial pressure. There are a number of obligations that have been made to it, and do not see space for additional spending on the Century Center for this roof project.
How much money is in that downtown TIF? Last time I checked, it was a little bit over $1 million, if I'm correct.
I don't have the balance here. We can provide it to you, but I know that there are budgeted items that have already been identified for it.
There was no budget items, and again, I'm going to digress in a couple of seconds, but the budget items that were there weren't there maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago. The time I took a redevelopment, allowed me to see a lot of those different things. And as a matter of fact, I think that if there is a priority, it is fixing the roof of a building that we own that people actually work in and do business in. If there's no better priority, I don't see why that's not a top priority, fixing the roof that's leaking. It causes a hazardous situation for those who are working in the building. We just had a roof collapse on Lincoln Way, I'm sure because of all the leaking that was going on with that roof for years in on out. I'm only stating that because I think it causes undue pressure with a group that is trying to better the city in response to doing great approach and great initiatives to get them to pay for something that we already have money already clearly allocated or defined in a line item that's there. And the line item would be that particular district. And I just feel like that if we're going to do public and private partnerships, which I think, again, is a great idea, great project, why won't we do what we're supposed to do by making sure that those dollars are allocated to fix the roof? I'm sure that it's not going to cost $1 million. If it does, I mean, do it. But I just can't understand why we won't fix our own roof.
Okay. Thank you. Other than that, let's get the vote on this. I concur with Councilman Henry Davis on this matter because the administration does have the majority of the people on the redevelopment, and so you have the authority to set that agenda and to encourage the redevelopment to help take care of that roof. And so I certainly would encourage our representatives from the city council, our 2 out of the 5, to really look into that because that's a concern of mine. I believe in public partnerships, but what's the good of a house if the roof is messed up? What's the good of a building if this is messed up? That, to me, should be something that is higher on a priority in terms for somebody, with all due respect, who's not a city person to share that we don't have the funds to take care of it. It's highly embarrassing, and we need to deal with that standpoint. Second thing I would like to share with you, you shared in your fact that the water, in terms of the sewer, and after the storm is how it comes together from that standpoint. I believe that in checking with Eric Cornwell on those numbers, that probably needs to be revisited again because we have put in terms of our 20-year plan that we have put together because I was chair of that committee, and we voted on that from the council to put several millions of dollars to correct a lot of that.
Right, and with all due respect, the 20-year plan, I spoke with the EPA rep in Chicago, and the 20-year plan does allow the city of South Bend to include green solutions in the CSO plan so that the city could include permeable pavers and that sort of thing. So
I'm okay with that, but it was just presented that our water is pretty much in so many ways polluted in that standpoint, okay? And I want you to just share as you make that presentation, since it's in a public forum and it's being publicly recorded, that we, from the utilities standpoint, from that we did address those matters.
And it does continue to be addressed. My point that I made just a few minutes ago was that the way we're addressing it is by using big stormwater pipes and holding tanks and the redirection technology, and there are other solutions that actually put money above ground, such as green roofs and soils, that sort of thing.
Well, let's get back. So I'll give respect for the idea. I'm still talking, so please. So that's one of the things that I would like for you, as you make this presentation, to deal with that, because I just think that while you shared that, it was not necessarily clear I understand. And so I just like, because of those of us who worked on that project are really, put a lot of time in that. And I would like for us to make sure that the public has a clear understanding of that. I'm also the green. I was part of it with Transpo. We have the green initiative. We have all the lead issues. But so therefore, I'm good with that. But I was just concerned with that piece of it. I'm going to be supporting it. But as you make future presentations, could you please add the fact of that? That's all I'm concerned with.
Okay, discussion is not concluded. Let's call for vote. Dr. Furless, let's call for vote.
I want to say something first. We're fortunate, and I don't mean to embarrass Kathleen, but her significant other is a city engineer who works on the CSO project. But I concur with Oliver. You do have to clarify that, but I'm sure you're very knowledgeable about it. But secondly, this is a win-win for the city. This is all going to be gotten from private funds. They're going out and raising all this. So the city's getting all this free. Not $1 of the taxpayer dollars is going to be spent on this. So this is a win-win. Why wouldn't you take a look at the horse in the mouth? So it's, whether it's the city fixes it or private funds, I'd rather have private funds fix it. Because it's free.
Call for the vote. Tim Scott, we have a recommendation. Yes, I move to pass.
Second.
Clerk Forty.
Mr. Henry Davis.
Aye.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Dr. Furlick.
Aye.
Dr. Varner.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Mr. Furlick.
Aye.
Mr. Scott.
Aye.
And President Peter. 9 ayes.
1339.
Good job.
Ready? 1339, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, recommending that the city enter into a public-private partnership agreement addressing the Potawatomi Zoo.
Thank you. We have a committee report. Yes, we do, President Dieter. The Park Committee met this afternoon and sent bill number 1339 to the full council for favorable recommendation. Thank you, Presenter. Yes, again, President Dieter, Councilman Henry Davis Jr., address is 5117 Idlewood Drive, South Bend, Indiana, 46619. Before you have a resolution looking for and making sure that we help foster the growth of public-private partnerships here in the South Bend, Indiana area. Whereas the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana acknowledged that in 1902, the Potawatomi Zoo opened, making it the oldest zoo in the state of Indiana. And whereas the Common Council further acknowledges that the Potawatomi Zoo features over 400 animals on 23 acres of land and its location is at 500 South Greenlawn Avenue, with a special emphasis on large cats, primates, and Australian animals, with more recent addition including a North American river otter exhibit. And whereas in 2012, the Parks and Recreation Department annual report notes that in 2012, the Potawatomi Zoo had 7 significant species survival plan births. Of these rare birds included a Diana monkey, I'm not going to say the name, but a takin, southern brown hornbill, and red-necked wallaby joeys. With 46 new animals being acquired last year, with included chimpanzees, a snow leopard, a Nord leopard, and a red panda, plus baby goats, ferrets, wallabies, and short-tailed possums. And whereas in 2012, the Parks and Recreation Department annual report also reported that the total paid attendance was up last year, rising to 104,013 from 97,684,400. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. In 2012, and whereas Potawatomi Zoo is accredited by the Association of Zoo and Aquariums, which is dedicated to the advancement of zoo and public aquariums in the areas of conservation, education, science, and recreation, and facilitates species survival plans and population management plans. And whereas the May edition of 2009 of Parents Magazine listed Fort Wayne Zoo as one of the top 10 best zoos for kids, and noted that it is operated by the private Fort Wayne Zoo Society. And whereas the Council's Parks and Recreation, Culture, and Art Entertainment Committee met in Council Chambers on May 9, 2013, and heard a detailed presentation from the Zoological Society and reviewed a 16-slide PowerPoint, which provided information on public-private partnership overview.
with all of that information being on record in the office of the city clerk. And whereas, at the committee meeting, members of the public had opportunity to address the committee, which included 2 union officials, one of which included the business agent for the Teachers Local Union Number 364, who represents many of the Potawatomi Zoo employees who offer support for this concept as long as employee wages and benefits would not negatively be impacted. And whereas the Common Council recognizes the public-private partnership between the City of South Bend and the Potawatomi Zoological Society provides an excellent opportunity for the zoo to maintain its AZA accreditation, will also enable the establishment of a best practice management model that will be physically sustainable and in the best interest of South Bend, Indiana. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana as follows. Section 1, the Common Council has had the opportunity to review the proposed public and private partnership between the City of South Bend, Indiana, and the Potawatomi Zoological Society, which the City Administration has been studying for several months. Section 2, the Council believes that so long as the city employees working at the Potawatomi Zoo have the opportunity to maintain their salaries and financial benefits, including the opportunity to be a member of the union, that the protected benefits of such an arrangement will be enabled the Potawatomi Zoo to become a world-class zoo which offers exceptional and outstanding experiences to the public, its animals, and its employees. Section 3, the undersigned members of the Common Council believes that once the conditions addressing the city employees are properly addressed, that a such public and private partnership will be in the best interest of the City of South Bend and should become in effect January 1st, 2014. Section 4, the resolution shall be in full force and effect from after its adoption by the council and approved by the mayor. And I made note that I did not sign it, and I'm actually sponsoring it, so I'm going to make sure I sign it before I leave out here tonight. And you have President Dieter as well as Valerie Shea will sign on as well. Council members, please.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Councilmember Davis for holding the first, or actually several meetings to get up to this resolution, so thank him for taking the lead in that. Now, anyone like to speak in favor? If someone wants to speak for your group, and I appreciate the time that you spent here. It may be agonizing, but thank you for your patience to get to this point.
Thank you, President Dieter. My name is Stuart Troy. I'm the immediate past president of the Potawatomi Zoological Society, located in the Little Red Barn at 500 South Greenlawn on the zoo premises. And I would, without going through introductions like all of our board members who came and have sat through the meeting, if they just stand, so you can see the kind of support that they've had in the work that they've put into this project as well.
Thank you for coming.
I would like to thank the council for its very thoughtful commitment to this project that each of you have given to the public-private proposal that we've presented here through the efforts of Councilman Davis. I'd also especially like to thank him, as you did, President Dieter, for all the hard work and thoughtfulness he's put into drafting this resolution and time he spent with me and other members of our organization to give us a lot of considered thought, because I think this really is a win-win for the city and the citizens of South Bend. I'd also like to thank the mayor, the party chief of staff, Mike Schmuel, Controller Mark Gill, and the Parks Department, because they've obviously put in a lot of time. We've met on a number of occasions over the last number of months to work on this project. I'd like to reconfirm for the council the commitment of the Zoo Society, steadfast in its belief that based upon the extensive amount of due diligence we've done, that this is a project that is going to be a win-win for the citizens of South Bend and the surrounding area. The MAP clearly supports this proposal. As we mentioned before, 70% of the accredited zoos in this country follow this management proposal because it works. It allows for a business model that successfully runs these organizations. It represents not only best practices, but a good stewardship of the taxpayers' money, which obviously you all work on every single day, and we all appreciate that, those of us who live and work in the city. We believe that implementing this management proposal will address the big issues we currently have with our accrediting agency, AZA, namely management efficiency and alternative funding sources, as we've mentioned before. We simply come here tonight to reaffirm everything we've spoken with all of you about in meetings and in the session that Councilman Davis was kind enough to allow us to present at a couple of weeks ago. We ask that you pass this resolution hopefully unanimously, and showing the council is fully committed to ensuring the zoo's best management practices going forward, the well-being of its animal exhibits, and its continued success well into the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none of that, council recommendation.
Move the adoption of 1339.
Second.
Motion second, clerk Gordy.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Dr. Furlick.
Aye.
Dr. Varner.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Mr. Furlick. Aye. Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Mr. Henry Davis.
Aye.
And President Dieter.
Aye.
That'd be 9 ayes.
Thank you very much. First reading of 2613, please.
First reading on a bill of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 21 of the South Bend Municipal Code, Article 5, Planned Unit Development District, Section 21-05, Planned Unit Development District, to revise the criteria used in determining major/minor changes to be approved by site plans and removing time limits to obtain secondary approval.
Move the 2613 go to your plan commission.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. 2713.
First reading on a bill to vacate the following property. The alley to be vacated is the first east-west alley south of Donmeyer Avenue from the west lot line of Lot 4, Forest Hill Addition, and east lot line of said Lot 4 for a distance of 40 feet and a width of 16 feet.
Go ahead, Bob.
Move 2713 go to Public Works Property Vacation Committee.
Second.
Yes. Second, third reading, public hearing on 624.
All in favor of that? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. 2813, please, Mr. Moyer.
First reading on the bill of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 20 of the South Bend Municipal Code by the inclusion of new Article 13 entitled Moped Regulations and amending Section 2-123, Schedule of Ordinance and Code Violations.
Move the 2813 be sent to Health and Public Safety Committee to be set for second and third reading and public hearing on 624.
Second. Motion second, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none of those. 2913.
First reading on a bill of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 19, Article 61, Section 19-61, subsection A of the South Bend Municipal Code as to limited sale of alcoholic beverages in public parks.
Move the 2913 be sent to Parks Committee, be set to second, third reading and public hearing on 624.
That was seconded by Dr. Fred Furlick. All in favor of that? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. May I have a motion to move Bill 1613 to ZNA for 62413? All in favor of that? Aye. Any opposition to that? Any other unfinished business before the council this time?
President Dieter. This is
very brief.
Personnel Finance Committee Chair is making the appointment of Mr. Mark Bramer as a citizen representative. His resume is on file with the clerk's office. He has a history not only in finance but in international business. I think he's a great asset.
Thank you very much. Any other new business before the council this time?
Yes, President Dieter, and this is, I put that miscellaneous section at the end of our part of the hearing earlier, but there is a city park plan that has been somewhat put together, I should say somewhat, but has been put together by some community members, and they have been working on it for some time, and the unveiling of this particular park plan in the first phase of it is looking like it's going to be held on July 3rd. The place of the meeting has not been yet defined. However, giving this out to the committee members as well, make sure that they are available on July 2nd. Thank you, Gavin. I'm glad I was thinking about that. It's July 2nd at 6 o'clock. Just make sure that they may or may not be available. So please let me know if you're available so that can be set. And the two places that have been looked at right now as far as the venue would be the Adam Patrol Shelter or the Russell Library Branch. have not been confirmed as of right now, but it needs to be confirmation from the members from the committee to be able to participate. The other deal is, again, I mentioned this at the last council meeting, and I'm going to move further into a more detailed conversation. The Cell Park Homes is turning into somewhat of a police state, if I said that correctly. Residents in that area have been awakened to loud mic talk over speakers, as well as having members of the police force running through the particular property. Well, I'm not suggesting that no one's not doing their job. What I am suggesting that it should be happening 2 or 3 times a day or 2 or 3 times throughout the week. So, with residents in fear of, without the relationship being there, with residents feeling like they should just stay in their homes, I think that we need to really look a little bit more in detail of what's actually going on over there and what the plans are and why there's so much of police presence in one particular area of the city. And so my next question is that if we can have a meeting from Health and Public Safety about this proposed, plan to alleviate, I don't know whether it's crime or what have you in that area. However, everyone that lives over there are not criminals. And so we need to make sure that they feel as protected as they should with the police presence that's there, if that's exactly what's happening.
Do you know what the circumstances of the police being there?
No one really knows what the circumstances are. However, the amount of traffic that is there is frightening to me and the folks that are there, that live there. So because I am the council representative for that area, I'm asking what's going on at this point. Now, I can assume, I can surmise what may be happening over that area, but the truth is I don't know until we find out. So that's why I'm asking that a committee here will be set to find out what is going on, why that practice isn't being installed, and if it's being installed there, why not it's being installed in other areas. It almost goes back to our initial conversation we had earlier about problem crime topics.
Is that, you sent that to Karen, but it's for the people who are making that complaint, if you could get it.
I'll make a complaint.
You can't tell me when it happened or
I'll make a complaint. That's my area. The people called me, they told me that it's a problem.
I would suggest to you when you're going to give that to Karen, at least have something that she can go on.
Well, I need to know why the practice is happening. They're not lying.
When and tell us when it is happening.
They're not lying.
Okay, thank you. Purposes of call, anyone want to talk about it? I'm not opinion, we want to talk about it.
I'm not finished.
You may not stop this way or...
No, we're not finished.
I need to check new business and stuff.
Hold on, man.
Alderman Karen, for point of order. That's some new business that hasn't finished. And on the agenda does have some new business.
There's only if there's a motion to overrule.
I'd like to make a motion to have... Second. I need to finish some new business and things like that. So we have a motion and a second.
Okay, we have a motion to what?
Overrule
your ruling.
We're going to finish, I'm going to finish with new business and old business.
Motion, all in favor of that? Aye. Any opposition? Nay?
So we win.
2-1.
Thank you. Can I have my old business finished? I would like, from old business, in terms of, I would like to have, this whole business, new business. This is our business.
It has to be new business.
Has to be new business. I think new business. We're in new business that I asked, you would like to, new business, our meeting for this next week. Chief of Staff, please explain our business that's coming up. Yes, new business. Will you please explain to everyone what's going on with Next Lane? And then I also,
Mike Schmoll, Chief of Staff, Mayor Buttigieg, offices on the 14th floor. On Thursday, June 13th, the EPA is going to be in South Bend at the Charles Black Center from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There'll be an hour break, and then they'll be back at the Black Center again from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. To answer any questions of residents, city officials, media, anybody from the public. If they have any questions or concerns, they can go to the Black Center and talk to EPA officials. This comes in response to the mayor's letter to the EPA Region 5 Administrator, Dr.
Susan Edmond in Chicago. When the EPA put us on the national priorities list, which is the first stage in possibly becoming a U.S. Superfund site, the mayor said, you know, what's going on with this? We'd like a public hearing. We'd like a public meeting. So this is in response to the mayor's request. So it's this Thursday at the public session.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
I'd like to also just publicly thank Council Attorney for going to the Pokagons meeting this past week to represent us. That was a good turn. And so we look forward to future plans in the future. There's a lot of future new business with them that we will be working with. And so therefore, the Pokagons really have, you saw a lot of their agenda out there in the 5th District, so I'm very thankful for that.
As did I, because I was there also.
Okay, thank you, President Dieter.
You're welcome, Vice President.
I appreciate it.
Henry Davis, do you have anything else further on that?
Well, I just wanted to be able to set the meeting hearing for the actions that are...
I think Councilmember White will do that for health.
Well, I don't know, I'm talking to her.
I will email the council members, the committee members, to identify a time, and we do have another item that we'll be discussing under, 2 items that we'll be discussing. I will email all committee members first thing tomorrow morning schedule, which will probably be next week as soon as possible.
Okay. Now, if you want to speak to us, you have 3 minutes. If there's something specific you want this council to follow up, there's forms that will be assigned to the committee, which it falls into, and they will contact you for a follow-up. Councilmember Tim Scott will keep track of the time. Here we go. I'll give you a 30-second text.
Okay, thank you, council members. My name is Mario Sims. I live at 237 70 Grove in South Bend, Indiana. Sometime in April, I began receiving phone calls from members of the community, specifically those who live on the west side, and relative to a matter, an incident that they allege occurred at the King Center. So I'm here tonight. I filled out the appropriate form because all I have is the information. I'm certainly not capable of conducting an investigation. We're here to ask council to do so. It is serious enough. There's been enough complaints expressed that I thought it best to bring before the council. What I understand happened is at some point a South Bend police officer was at the King Center along with the chief. A citizen came in, a young girl came in and said that there was a man outside with a handgun. The officer left the building to attempt to address this issue. The chief did not leave to back up the officer. From now, I'm being told that Lieutenant Lee Ross, who is Internal Affairs, is essentially intimidating the citizens to try to prevent them from complaining about that. Conducted some additional research and determined that it's not appropriate for Internal Affairs to investigate an appointed official. In fact, that investigation should be done by the public safety committee. Because of the issues before this council relative to health and safety, it's pertinent that this officer, that it be known this officer is African American. I'm a former Marine. It would be sheer blasphemy for another Marine to be placed in a position of danger and not have the support of all the ones around it. The question is, why wasn't this officer backed up? The question is, why is Lieutenant Lee Ross conducting the investigation instead of the Board of Public Safety? So I'm here tonight. I don't have the facts. You have the power to obtain the facts. These are allegations that certainly are ugly. I think they're serious enough for you to investigate. And I'm sure that those involved, including the chief and the officer, will want these matters properly investigated. If they're not true, we need to know it. If they're true, we need to have this council whoever take the appropriate action. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 1045, South Bend, Indiana. I come to you again with an issue that's so fraught that was, I guess, committed against the city. Everybody I've talked to has said, hey, this is a crime. The chief himself told me it was a crime. And we've got a chief that we're supposed to be putting in charge of doing more duties, apparently, from what we heard tonight. And I can't even get him to make phone calls back when he promises he will. And this has been passed now from the prosecutor, who tells me to go to the police. I take it to the police, they make a crime report, they pass it to the city legal department, and then the chief in this recording here tries to explain to me why this fraud against the city and citizens of the city should be handled as a civil matter instead of the crime that it is. I would like you guys to take this to the Committee for Health and Public Safety and also Personnel and Finance and look into why this stuff isn't being investigated properly and as a crime. I'll let you listen to what the chief's explanation to me was.
Council, this was covered in the Q&A.
I'm providing a copy on DVD of that full recorded conversation to the council so y'all can listen to it a little bit more thoroughly and hear what this explanation was to me on why this is not a crime and it's a civil matter.
All right, thank you, sir. Reverend Greg Brown, 1238 Diamond. I have a video from St. John's, Greater St. John's Church, prior to this incident at Martin Luther King Center. Chief Teachman showing the leg irons in the church and asking us as a community, ministers, pastors to come out and help in any type of thing that we see going on to keep from locking people up. Two minutes, 30 seconds. Just to like, that must be a whole picture there.
And then to give us the right to vote, because you know he worked so hard with President Lincoln on the Emancipation Proclamation of the 13th Amendment back in 1865 and getting at least men to vote by 1870. And it struck me, as Mother stood up today, since she was born in 1917, that when she was born, women still didn't have that right. It was 50 years later. I wonder what he would say if he were here today. The preacher will speak about, are you enslaved? Your soul. Is your spirit free? But as your chief of police, I'm looking at the physical. Now, please forgive me if I just take a moment and share with you my journey here was not from New Bedford directly to South Bend, but I spent a year and a half in the country of Tajikistan in Central Asia. The reason why I tell you that is Tajikistan is one of the 15 Soviet Union republics, the poorest and least developed. The average monthly salary is $70 US. 50% of the population lives in less than $2 a day. And what struck me in my first of 18 months when I got there was something that tore my heart apart.
We'll see.
you see, I rushed through the video. It shows in the church right behind Martin Luther King Center, 75 feet from where the youth were out there fighting, and he didn't come out to assist the officer. And I want the council to look into this matter. And you heard what he said tonight, Mr. Scott, with the crime. If he's not going to come out, why should we come out? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
My name is Samuel Brown for Citizens United for Better Government. Chief Teachman is appointed official by the mayor, and what I'd like to know is, are we going to get some other positions filled by the mayor? Chief Teachman can't do it. Yes, or is he going to just cut those jobs out altogether? A lot of people keep asking me. I don't have the answers. So maybe one of the councilmen can contact the mayor and find out. Are those jobs going to ever be filled, or is he's going to eliminate it? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? We're done.
I'm looking at June the 19th for public